Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Duty Ron. Thank you so much. We have a big thank you. Let's all thank Ted right now. He is a hidden gem who is actually sitting over at the courtroom steps right now, ready for tomorrow. While I go live, and this is going to be a very, very long show. There is a lot to cover, and I will do my best covering it fast and trying to be as concise as I can. But I have so many notes. I lost track of witnesses, and we were actually in court until after 6 p.m., witness after witness after witness. So I went live during my lunch live, right? And I said, we saw two videos, an interview and an interrogation video. And whoa, I have so much to tell you guys. And then we go back in, and I think we had at least six, if not seven witnesses, 6 or 7, and all of them working at the prison where they were suicide companions for, which I can't use that word. So I'm going to have to say S companions throughout this. We'll take care of whatever YouTube wants us to do. So they were S companions for Richard Allen, and they each wrote things that Richard Allen told them, that they had allegedly told him. So let's just go back to the beginning. I told you at lunch that I was going to almost just read through verbatim what happened in the two very long videos. We spent the entire morning with the two videos, and I wrote as fast as I could, as did my neighbors, and we exchanged notes. And I did my best to get the best transcription I can. I'm sure one day you'll all be able to hear these. You know, there's a court reporter in there, but for now, I was in there, and I'm going to do my best. I also want to thank everybody that's in chat, including fellow creators who have covered this case. It's so important that we all work together. And I know that there has been controversy in our chat in the past few days. And so I just want to say this, that I invite all creators to be here, but let's just please try to be kind and respectful to everyone, because covering the Richard Allen trial is a joint effort, and all of you guys mean so much to me. And everybody has been so helpful, and so many creators have brought so much to this case over the years. And I just am so grateful that everyone can be here tonight. And then to my moderators who have told me that covering this Delphi case is very difficult, thank you from the bottom of my heart for my incredible moderators. And I did give them permission, though, that if something is going awry, they can, in order to help make things easier for them, they have permission to take over tonight. So thank you, everyone. Again, let's get to it. First off, full courtroom this morning, very full courtroom. Abby's parents were there. Abby's grandparents were there. Aunts were there. Libby's mother, Libby's aunt, Libby's grandparents, the Patties, Kelsey, Libby's half sisters, just a lot of people. And then on the other side, where the defense is, you had Kathy Allen, you had Richard Allen's father there. His mother is still not there. I did ask about her, and someone said that Richard Allen's mother is out of the hospital after she fell a couple days ago, but she is recovering at home. Thank you so much for gifting the memberships. Thank you, Share Bear. So it wasn't just a full courtroom with the public and people spending the night outside last night. A big thank you to Heidi, who helped us too. I want to say to Heidi, a hidden gem, who helped us overnight as well, get a spot. It's now, people are now, I thought it would get better, and I thought it would get easier going into the courtroom after like some of us showed up for 2 weeks, but people are now lining up before we even get out of the courtroom for the day. So as we got out today at 6 p.m., like out of the courtroom, there are already 12 people in line and only like 22 people can fit in like in the line. So it's actually kind of like getting a little bit more intense. So Is this taking a village? And I just want to thank Ted tonight and Heidi last night so that I can be here live. Because I think that there's probably a line of 30 out there now for tomorrow. And by the way, I mentioned that I'm going home for Halloween. I was going to go home tomorrow. I just switched my flight. So I will be there tomorrow all day. I've heard it's going to be a very important day tomorrow too. Thank you, Carla. And it was an important day today. Let's get to it, as I said earlier. So, and then Brenda, so Carrie is Libby's mom, and her sister Brenda was also there. It started again with the interrogation. So to remind everyone, the interview. To remind everyone, there were 2 interviews with Richard Allen. I guess technically both could be technically an interrogation. That's a question for Duty Ron here. But the first interview with Richard Allen was on October 13th, 2022. And in that, it was an interview done by Mullins and Liggett, who have both testified. And they went over to Richard Allen's house after Kathy Shank brought over the information, and they learned of this old tip sheet that they learned that this gentleman had been at the bridge on February 13th, 2017, and they didn't really dot their I's and cross their T's. So they go over to Richard Allen's house and they realize that he lives on Whiteman Drive. That's why his name was Richard Allen Whiteman. They go over there and they say, hey, will you come over to the station for an interview? And he's like, absolutely, let's go. So they all go over, they go into this room and they turn on the camera, and here we are. So October 13th, 2017, he has not heard from police since 2017 when he offered all the information he did about his alibi being at the bridge. And 5 years later, here we are. So I'm just going to read what I got down. Okay, let's go. Let's do it. So they come in, they spoke to Dolan. So remember, Dolan was the one that interviewed Richard Allen back in 2017. So they're starting to say, hey, look, we spoke to Dolan and we just wanted to know what you saw. We learned you were at the bridge. And in this video, by the way, Richard Allen has a dark sweatshirt on. He has a long goatee. A lot of our witnesses today had long goatees. So long goatees must have been a thing in Indiana here in the last 5 years, I'm learning. So he had a long goatee today and short, almost buzzed hair, similar to how he has it in the courtroom. And so then he says, and then they begin again. So hey, Richard, according to Dolan, you were on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30. And you parked at the Farm Bureau building, and you may have been, although at the old welfare office, according to us. And then Richard says, yeah, so my name is Richard Matthew Allen. I'm 50 years old. I was born in 1967. He lives on Whiteman Drive again. He shares his phone number. We hear his voice. By the way, that's as interesting. I know everybody's asking okay, you know what? You guys are wondering. I wasn't going to say anything. You guys want to know if his voice matches Bridge Guy, right? I even got a text from a mod just now saying everybody wants to know. So let me just say this. Is it a match? I don't know what a match is. I don't know if there's a match. Could it be? I'm no voice recognition analyst. So this is coming from Lauren, woman and reporter in the courtroom, and nothing else. I'm no expert. We have to realize that the voice was amplified. It's quiet. Like I hate to even speculate. This is very difficult for me, but everybody's saying this is all you guys want to know. Is it possible? It's probably possible. I think I could say that about a few voices. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know if there's a match. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But there was no that's the voice I've been waiting to hear. There was none of that. But could it be possible? Yeah, it could be possible. Could it be possible it could be someone else's voice? Yes. Is that fair? Let's leave it at that. So back to this. Now that we got that out of the way. He gives his phone number. I hear his voice. He is very calm. Richard Allen is very calm as he shares all this personal information. He again shares his phone number. He's calm. Um, they ask him what kind of phone he has. He says he has an Android. They share an email, rick2045@frontier.com. This was interesting. Before he shared the email, he goes, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was deciding which email to share, but he went, Then he shared the Rick 2024. And then he said, I have another email too. It's fujacko@gmail.com. That's an interesting email because they've brought that email up in court actually yesterday at the end of court, saying that they wanted to do a Google search results using that email. And the defense was arguing that there's no guarantee he's the only one that used that email address. So put a pin in that. We'll find out what they decide. So there's that email address. They asked for he doesn't have a Facebook account. His wife, Kathy, does. He's married to Kathy. He has a daughter named Brittany. She's 28 years old, 1994. They ask her last name. He actually struggles spelling her last name. And he explains that she married a man that was originally from the Philippines. He lived in Canada and they got married in 2017. He explains that he graduated high school in Miami in 91. He studied accounting. And then he explains that he was in the military, National Honor Society, Army National Guard, rank E5. He doesn't go to church, although he occasionally goes, but church isn't really his thing. They asked him about his health. He said he had a heart attack in 2010, and I think he said a couple since. It was kind of hard to hear. And then he struggles with, and this is going to be a theme throughout the entire day. But he says back then, I struggle with severe depression and anxiety, blood pressure, and cholesterol. Hold on. Let me just clear my throat here. I'm going to put on mute for you guys. Okay. Are we good? We're good. In 2013, he worked in Peru. That's not the country. That's Peru, Indiana. And then he went to Delphi. He said in 2016 or 2017, he came to Delphi, and he's been here for a while now. Again, this is 2022. He spent 10 years with Walmart. He was the store manager. And then I'm going to get rid of this. I have a little desk here. It's not working. And then no, it is working. I need the light. Okay. And then the Peru, got a little metal desk. We're going to get this done. Okay. So he's in Peru at the CVS. It didn't work out. He was training. He didn't transfer back. It's a long story. He explains he got tired of it, tired of the customers. In 2016, he came back to Delphi. By the way, I noticed that he doesn't really pronounce. He's kind of he doesn't really pronounce his words a lot. He has a bit of a he's not super articulate. Doesn't enunciate. That's what I'm looking for. He's I don't know what you would call that, but he doesn't enunciate all his words. But it's kind of like a relaxed way of talking, and he's not the most articulate. But smart. He sounds like a regular guy talking here. Again, he stays calm for the majority of this interview, really. So then they ask him, so what was going on Monday, February 13th, 2017? He goes, well, I went to my mom's in Peru. She might have had surgery around that time. He's not quite sure, but he spent the morning with them, she says, and his sister came over and his wife was working and they were all going to go get lunch, like mom, sister, them. And so he left. It was a warm day, warmer than usual for that time of year. So he, because his wife was working, he put a jacket on, went home, put a jacket on, and walked back on High Bridge, and in quotes, onto the bridge. So he said that twice. He goes, so I walked on High Bridge onto the bridge. So he puts himself on the bridge that day. And then I walked back. It was probably around 11 or 11:15, around there. I walked on High Bridge. So he says it again. He walked on High Bridge. Not all the way. He said, I just went to the ledge, not the whole way, just to watch the fish. I like fishing. I went down. I sat on the bench for a while. I sat for a while and then got up and left. Is there a back road or bridge on the other side? He's asked. But yeah, he asked, "Is there a back road or a bridge on the other side?" And I parked there. He explained, "There is some farm's entrance. We know that as Mears farm entrance." But he says there is some farm entrance, and I didn't park there because there were a couple of vehicles. That's interesting. I thought too. He's actually saying he didn't park at the farm entrance because he saw a couple of vehicles. And then he said, "You take the road where the park is. The road takes off to the right." And I just put in parentheses, this was a little hard for me to get every detail, but for quite a while, he's just kind of like explaining through different roads and ways. He's describing to the officers or the detectives where he parks. So then he parked in this area where I parked. He said at one point where I parked, they didn't want you to park there, but I parked there. There's a bridge side. And again, I write in parentheses here, this is being described for a very long time. And then he pulls out a map. Look, can you, oh no, excuse me. The officers pull out the map and they say, "Can you mark where you parked?" And there is a lot of talking between them while pointing out this map and this old bridge. "Which way would you travel?" they ask him. I don't know the roads, but I can tell you where I drove," he says. "If you go down and around there on occasion, you could go down another way. I go there a lot," he says. I mean, guys, I just want to pause and say I kept writing because it was really interesting to me just how long they spent talking about where he parked and which direction he went. So I'll just say, while I couldn't get everything, just know it was a very large part of this video. He explains, "I think there is a way to go past the farmer's entrance. I know there is a way that winds around and it comes out somewhere out there. And we did that once on accident. We went that way." So that was interesting too. He said, "Yeah, I know there's a strange way and it throws you out kind of in this area because we went that way once on accident. We went that way. But usually we go the way to town." So after he says that he went this other way, then he says, "But usually we go this way to town, but we did come out this other way on accident." He asked about talking to Officer Dolans back in the day. And he says shortly later, they were asking people, they explained, why did you reach out back in 2017? And he explains that they started asking for people that were there, that went down to the trail that day, to go down to the police station or go make a tip. He had said, "So I went down to the sheriff's station. I said, 'Look, here's my info. I pulled over. I talked to an officer.'" So now it sounds like maybe he went to the side of the road. Because then he says, "I pulled over. I talked to an officer. I asked if they could talk at the office, but I just asked if he could meet me in the parking lot." Okay, let me reiterate. Forgive me. He did go to the sheriff's office. Then he left. Then that's when Dolans called him on the phone and said, "Will you come down to the sheriff's office again?" But he said, "Look, I'm on my way somewhere. Can you just meet me in the parking lot of the grocery store?" Which actually does make sense to me that someone would do that. Look, like I can't like take a moment out of my day to come meet you at the sheriff's office, but I'm super willing to come meet me in this parking lot. It does make sense to me that he did that. So they call me, but I just ask if he can meet me in the parking lot of the grocery store. He did. He got all of my info, and that's pretty much that. I haven't heard from anyone since. Then he says, "I've thought about it a lot since then." And he emphasized a lot, and I emphasized a lot on my paper. "I thought about it a lot since then. I think I was there around 1 to 1:30 or maybe 1:45, depending. I walked down the trail. I approached the trail. There were 3 girls walking the trail, and one was watching the other 2. So he explains that one of the girls was older and she seemed to be babysitting the other 2 girls. I remember they all looked similar walking down the trail head, and they didn't see me. I didn't see anyone else the entire time. There were other vehicles parked at the farmer's entrance." And then they ask him, "Had you ever been out there before?" And then he gives this very long explanation that was hard to follow. And I checked it with my courtroom neighbors. But he explains that he had been out to this trail before, and explains that the first time he came out, he wasn't even living in Delphi at the time. He said, "Yeah, We did a cleanup for the Lafayette Walmart where I worked. And it was where I sat on this bench, and there was this little shed back then, and the local Walmart in 2006, it wasn't even a Walmart at the time. I went to CVS, and so like he was going all over the place here. He explains that he was working and he started going out around this time where they were like helping with some flood waters or something back. It was really confusing. So he gives this whole kind of story for, the first time he ever came out to the trail, which sort of equates to being 2006. And then he said he got associated with whoever runs the Erie Canal. Dan McCain got involved. He brought people out from Walmart to the Erie Canal thing, the Carlton Bridge that day. And he said, I just remember an SUV sedan at Mears. So going back, so he explains that that's where he sort of was introduced to the trails, and then he started taking his family. So his family started going out to the trails, in other words, back in 2006, well before he ever moved to Delphi. And I want to point that out because that's interesting to me. Richard Allen was familiar with the trails, we know. All the way back in 2006, he's kind of giving the story of like, oh yeah, back in the day, this is when I became familiar with them. So then he says, going back to that day, that February 13th day in 2017, he says he just remembers an SUV sedan at the Mears Farmers entrance. And I parked where I didn't see anyone. That's interesting. I parked where I didn't see anyone. And then again, I just put in the parentheses, so much talk and explanation of where he parked. And I'm going to read some of that. He said, a lot of people parked at the farm's entrance, but no one was supposed to park there. So I didn't park there. The farm's entrance is the most convenient, but I didn't park there. I never knew the name of the building where I parked. I explained, though, to you that I took a left and then I took a right. And they're, again, pointing out the map, really kind of understanding where he parked. How far up, they ask, the high bridge did you go? He says, no idea how many feet. There was a platform thing that sticks out between 6 and 10. I used to walk across the whole bridge when it was in better shape, but I don't go all the way across anymore. Again, I just went out to see if I could see any fish. So they ask him, if you parked here, so they know on the map where he parked, in other words. There's questions about if they really know. They figured it out. They took a really long time figuring out where he parked. He said, so they explained, if you've parked here, where did you go to get into the trail? He explains again, after they asked that question about where he went into the trail, he explains again why he parked where he parked. He explains at some point, you just walk along the road. That's interesting too. So he explains that in order to get to the trail from where he parked, he has to walk along the road. And there is a little trail. And like he said, they didn't want him to park at Mears. And that's why he never parks at the Mears. And that's why he parked at the building until they did that gravel path to the trail. But they didn't want him to park somewhere else. So he just parked there. He often works away from home. And when he was working in Peru, his he would drive at 3 a.m. And there was this one day that he was so tired driving his truck back in Peru that he fell asleep and the airbag came out. And he went to the side of the road and he hit an SUV on the side of the road. And he stopped. He hit at full speed, he says. So anyway, he said he got out. He couldn't find anything anyway, blah, 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 long story. And by the way, that's not me saying blah, blah, blah. This is Richard Allen saying it. I literally quoted him. I get out. I couldn't find anything, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, my point is I was driving a black car then, and I drove to Delphi, and I didn't need it. So I drove the black car. So my wife drove the gray car, but sometimes I take the black car because it's more dependable. But anyway, it has her license plate. I got her a gray car 3 or 4 years ago. I got her the black car. I look at the jury at this moment because this is, to me, it was really interesting. Like he was just getting so detailed. So I look at the jury to try to figure out what they're thinking during this. And honestly, the jury looks completely poker faced. 2 of the jurors' arms are folded like this, as they're just like zoned in on the video. They're just sitting here. arms folded, watching. Every juror, poker face. I can honestly tell you, I have no idea what the jury is thinking at this moment. I do notice that in the video, he does a lot of touching of his face and his ears. And again, I'm I'm not a body language expert. Actually, technically my husband is, but my husband says that like it's all objective. And so my point is I don't even know if that means anything. I'm just sharing it. I've noticed that he touches his face a lot, even in court. So I'm noticing that here too. Take that for what it is, just sharing it. A lot of touching of his face and his ears in the video. The only people I saw, again, he states, were the girls and the girls that stood out to me. I was walking towards them, an older girl and two younger girls. I didn't see anyone else. I didn't see anyone else jump out to me. And then they asked him, this is exactly how they asked him. Did you have a phone or a watch with you? And this is what he says. I thought this was interesting. So they say, did you have a phone or a watch with you? And by the way, the tone of this conversation is calm and casual still at this moment. It's just like a bunch of dudes at lunch, you know? So did you have a phone or watch on you? He says, I think so. I had a program so that if you didn't have service, I could get my phone still. I watch the stock market on my phone. I like to look at cars and I like predicting what might happen. So that's how he responds to his phone. That was interesting. So then he says, and then they ask him, what did you wear? And he said, a jacket, blue jeans, and then I have a Carhartt jacket. We've all had Carhartt jackets over the years. I have a blue one. I have a black one. I think I have an off-brand one. Could have worn that. I have hoodies, jackets, a little bit of everything, sweatshirts. And then Richard Allen, in the video, takes a sip of his water after he shares that. And then they say, okay, what kind of shoes were you wearing? And he says, shoes. I've had them for 10 to 12 years. I would have been tennis shoes. I've had military boots though, but I haven't worn those in years. And I have combat boots. I haven't worn those in years either. So probably tennis shoes. But if it's wet, I'll wear the combat boots. That they are waterproof, but I don't know. Oh, and then he says, but I don't know. This wasn't that long ago, but long enough. And then he kind of mumbles, and I look over the jury and they're looking. And then in the video, they leave, like the officers leave for a second after that. And while they leave, just to demonstrate, actually, I can't demonstrate because I don't think I have my phone. Where is my phone? Oh, let me grab my phone really quickly. So they leave, and just so you guys can know just kind of how casual it is, he has his one hand on one arm and he's just kind of looking at his phone. He's just kind of scrolling his phone like this, just chilling. So that's what it looks like. Oh, and I'm glad I grabbed my phone because I see from a moderator, I need a slow chat. So pause for a second. Let's slow chat. Okay. Slow and chat. So moderator, let me know if that's good enough. I can definitely slow it more. We'll start with that. So then they come back. They come back in the room and they say, okay, so what we would like is to get more information. We would like to examine your phone, they say to him. Straight up. I like that. Forward. They're like, look, we'd like to examine your phone because it could help confirm or deny, and we could extract information from your phone. Would you be okay with this? And then he says, I don't have the phone. I don't have the phone. He goes, and they said, well, that's okay. We could take your phone now and start with that. Maybe your phone right now. And then he said, well, I always try let me get this right because it's important. And I was putting things in the margin and I was doing little arrows. Okay. So they say, look, could we extract your phone? He says, I don't have my phone back then. And they're like, that's okay. Let's just start with the phone you have now. And he says, well, I always try to save my contract online. I always try to use the same online contract. That's an online service that a lot of people don't know about. You pay a full price for a phone, like $500 and $600 for a phone. But as far as service, I only pay $40 a month for 2 phones. It's called Ting. I checked with other people in the courtroom and they spelled it Ting. And then they say, okay, so again, he didn't really answer, like, could we use your phone? He just explains his phone service. And then they say, okay, well, do you recall what phone you had back in 2017? He says, I didn't have this phone yet. As far as a service provider, I probably would have had Ting. Then gosh, I don't know after that. I just don't know if I had Ting. It's a home system. It works off of like Verizon, and you don't hear about AT&T anymore these days. But when I moved to Delphi, and since I left Walmart, I had my phone plan through Walmart until I left to Delphi. And then they say again, okay, well, we could start with this phone if it's okay with you. And then they actually hand him at this moment, just to like, make things a little bit more tense. They hand him sort of like a permit, and he's reading a search permit. And now arms are folded now in the video. So it quickly kind of shifted. They say, okay, so anyway, can we ask for your password? And are there any questions you have for us? And then he said, well, this sounds more like, look, I don't want to be, he said, this sounds more like, so now Richard Allen's getting concerned. Look, I don't want to be anyone's fall guy. I just want to be helpful. And then they say, well, we need to try to eliminate you. But then he says, and then he goes, sure, but I don't want to be anyone's fall guy. I'm not questioning your integrity, officers, but see, what I'm saying is, and I didn't get the rest. Sorry, I put ellipses after that, ... because I didn't get the rest of that. Then they come back and they say, I see what you're saying. The officers state, or the detective states, but from our perspective, we just want to make sure everything you're saying is true. We want to look at your car, look at your house, and it's all very important. He states, I get that. I don't mind you going through my house, but it feels like you're starting to blame me. And I don't want to be a fall guy. They say, you won't be a fall guy. And then he reiterates again. I thought this was interesting. He said this a few times. And he goes, look, I'm not, so to the officers or detectives, he says, I'm not questioning your integrity. But if you're going to search my car and my house, I am not going to allow police without a warrant. But I'll let you look at my phone. They say, great. And then they have a question. So will you try to get us that other phone again from 2017? He states, yes, I will try. And then they said, so what is the phone again? And then he said, oh, it's a Google something or other. The code is 2045. They say, you know what? And then they question, then Richard Allen comes back. He's rethinking things. And he says, you know what? Let me talk to my wife first. I don't want to be associated with this any more than anyone else does. And I am no angel. And I don't want you looking at every website I visited. So let me just talk to my wife first before I let you all in. I've never questioned, though, anyone's else's integrity. And then the police say, look, I don't want you to think that we are randomly coming after you. And then he said, I don't think you are coming after me. And then they confronted him. So, we're just getting some things hided. They said, well, look, you said that you were at 1:30 to 3:30 on the trails. And then he said, no, I left more like 1:30 from the trails. And then they said, well, we just kind of need to know things like that then to get exact. Like, I just know. And then he explains, look, I just know that I left at 11 a.m. because I wasn't going to do that lunch thing. I was just going to watch the stock market. At this moment, I look over at Kathy Allen, his wife, who's in front, and she often does this, but during this moment, Kathy is shaking her head like this, and she's looking very sad, almost like this. Don't know what it means, just sharing. I can't imagine how all the families are feeling in here. So he's now been past the tip lead from Dolan's, and he's reading the tip lead from 2017. And Dan Dolan's is his name. And then he says, as far as searching my house and my phone, and I didn't get the rest of what he said. And then the officers say, look, it would be very helpful if we don't find anything, that's great. Like it would just be very helpful. And he says, like, we are here because we haven't found the guy who did this. Oh, this is important. This was a quote from Richard Allen. Excuse me. Richard Allen states, like, look, we are all in this room together because we haven't found the guy who did this. And I don't want to become that guy. And I watch Dateline every week with my wife. And I know that you won't find anything. And you can come get the info that you need. I have nothing to do with this. I haven't been a part of this investigation. It's a horrible thing. And I don't want to be a part of it. If I have something useful, I will share it. And then they say, look, if we can look at your car forensically, then we can say we looked at Ricky, we looked at his car. And then he said, look, I need to talk to my wife first. And I know y'all don't talk to nobody, ... didn't get the rest of it. And then detectives say, look, a couple of things to ask. If we would you mind if we stepped out for a minute? And he says, go ahead. And Richard Allen then at that same time, he actually goes into that same stance. He has his phone. He looks very comfortable, and he's just kind of scrolling his phone and has his hand on the other chair, and he's leaning back like this. That's kind of what he does the whole time the officers are out. In the courtroom, it's his attorney Baldwin that looks more like that. Baldwin is sitting right next to him, and he has his arm around Richard Allen. This is something that Baldwin has actually done quite a few times in court, including both times that the crime scenes were shown. Yesterday was the second time, and then the first time. Both times that happened, Baldwin has his arm completely around Richard Allen. And during this interrogation this morning, I made note it was the same thing. Baldwin had his arm around Richard Allen. So Richard Allen looks at his phone, and so back to the video, just staring at the phone. He's not moving. He's not touching his face. His left arm's on the chair next to him, looking down as he scrolls with his right hand. He looks up, he pauses, he finally puts his phone down, then he picks it back up. So his phone, like many of us, including me, is sort of, I think, his like crutch during this like long wait. He's putting it down, he's lifting it up, he's looking at it, but he's not touching his face. He's just kind of, looking at his phone. They come back in. He said, look, one thing you told us was your car. And we have a picture of your car going up the trails that day. And they show him the photo. And he says, hold on. They say, I'm going to be honest with you. We know that, we have a pic of an individual on the bridge. And you describe yourself that day and what you're wearing. And what you're wearing, and it's similar to the picture of the guy on the bridge. And then he goes, look, it's not me. I've never met these girls. So even if it looks like me, it is not me. I have never met them. End quote. Then this was a really interesting moment. They bring up the house incident. I think that Dr. John, my co-host, brought it up in his personal analysis. Criminal psychologist John Matthias, before I left for trial, about an incident where police were called to the house and they ended up transporting Richard Allen to the hospital, I believe police did. So the officers bring up the house incident and they say, look, We know about this when they were called by Kathy, when the police were called by Kathy. And he gets pretty upset at this moment. I don't even mean like angry or defensive. I just mean like he gets something happens. I'm not even like pinpoint the emotion, but it sort of like kind of triggers him. And he goes, look, he goes, I was going to shoot myself that night, but my psychological issues aren't new. They are not because I killed these girls. And then at this moment, I look over at Kathy Allen in the courtroom, and she is actually visibly crying and pretty hard at this moment. And I'm sure she's remembering this night. It sounds like it was a very real night. Police were called. And according to Richard Allen himself, he says that this was a night where he was considering taking his life. His wife is crying in the courtroom. And she's holding the top of her nose like this as her head is bent down, crying. And then goes back to investigators. They say, look, we need to find out what happened. You're wearing the same clothes, the same hat as Bridge Guy. What we want to do is look at your phone and the data and check it all out. You say you're a nice guy. I believe, so many pages here, that you're a nice guy. You rode in the car with us here. We had a nice talk. At this moment, by the way, Richard Allen is not like this. He is now like this, sitting in this room. So while they're telling him that they think he's a nice guy and how they remind him that they all rode in the car over here together, Richard Allen is like this. They're like, look, you rode in the car here with us. We had a nice talk. And a lot of us, what we need to figure out is why you say one thing, but we see another. And he said, look, it is my car. I told you I could have been driving that car. It is his car. He goes, and they say, look, and then he says, I'm not concerned, but if you are asking if my story has changed, so I feel now, he goes, I feel now I'm being interrogated. You talked to my wife and my daughter, and my family thinks I did this. What would you suggest? And then they go, well, what would you suggest we do? He goes, you went and talked to my daughter and my wife, he says. I cannot tell you what happened. If this is a quote they've already mentioned in court, it's important. If that photo was taken from the girl's phone, then it is not me because I have never met them, end quote. You said, though, that you were on this bridge at this time wearing these clothes. And he says, no, I didn't. And they said, yes, you did. The question is that you? It's what we want to have an answer to. Did you cross the bridge all the way to the other side and go down the hill? And then he said, what do you mean? And they said, you said you walked on the bridge. And he said, this is the first platform. I don't know how far I went. I haven't gone that far in years. And then they said, the question is this you? And they point to the picture. And he says, no. I told you I could be wearing a lot of different things that day. And they said, you said you could be wearing a black or blue Carhartt coat. And then he gets defiant, and Mullins is actually getting really close to him. So the interview started where they were across the table from each other. And now Mullins is like, so I'm on the corner. You can't see, but I'm on the corner of the dining room table. So if Richard Allen were here at this corner, he was right here at this other corner, like kind of like, I don't think he was trying to do it to intimidate him. I think he was just trying to like get comfortable and show him things like, look at this picture, look at that. But it has shifted where like Mullins is like right here next to him. And Richard Allen is now being defiant, arms closed, like defensive, and they're showing the photos to him and they're talking to him. He states, it's not me. You're not going to make me believe it's me. That's a direct quote. I thought that was interesting. It's not me. You're not going to make me believe it's me. And then the investigators say, put yourself in our situation while we are looking at all of the evidence. Think of what you've shared with us. And then he says, I'm done. Arrest me or take me home. I'm done. And then the video is redacted. And I should have mentioned that there are some redactions in both these videos. It's like a black moment. They put like a black thing on the screen and then they go back. Don't know what they redact. There's a black screen right there. Then he says, "This is ridiculous. You're trying to tell me I gave you a description of Bridge Guy and I didn't. You can't even say that that's a Carhartt coat." And they said, "We can't say it is or it isn't." And then he states, "I'm not going to talk to anyone. This is really pissing me off." And the police say, and that's the end. And the police say, "Thank you." And he walks out and he says, "You're an asshole." And he walks out. Two jurors smile after he says, "You're the asshole" whole comment, and walks out on the video. And that's the end of that video. Two jurors were smiling. Don't know why, but they were. Then the morning break happens. I look over at Kathy Allen. I look over at everyone. I just kind of scan the courtroom to see what I noticed that's important to report. And Kathy Allen was crying very hard after this interview ended. How's the chat? I slowed it down. Let me know before I jump into this next interrogation video from October 26, 22, which is the day he was arrested. Let me know how the chat's going. Maybe they were, Emily. Yeah, I'm just the messenger. And I love being the messenger, so you guys can form your own opinions. Maybe, yeah, I mean, maybe they were. So just checking, just want to make sure. I guess nobody can write right away. So I'll keep going. Let me know if the chat's okay. And thank you everyone for liking and subscribing this video. And I see that there are a lot of super chats and a lot of things going on. I will check those soon too. So thank you. We just have so much to get through. Thank you, everybody. All right. I'll just... All right, I'll just slow it down a bit. I can also speed the chat up too if we decide to make it too slow. I see 1,000 people here. That's incredible. I'm so grateful so many people care about this case, and I will keep breaking this down and doing my best, just relaying what I'm seeing in court today. Okay, so the morning break is finished. Then we have the interview with Holman. And if you guys remember Lieutenant Holman, he's been on the stand twice. And he is the one that did this interview with Richard Allen the day he was detained on October 26, 2022. So almost exactly 2 years ago. 2 years ago and a couple days. So Richard Allen in the video, again, he has his long goatee. He has his buzzed gray hair. He's in a black top and black bottoms that actually look like scrubs. And for a second, I wondered if they were. But then I saw a bit of a track pant line on his pants. So I think they were like track pants and a black t-shirt. At this moment, they had seized items from his house, and they explain what they seized. So they're like, "Look, we took clothes, we took knives, we took a car. Car is 6 hour, and then and then it's just Holman in the room right now." And so he says, and they talk military for the while. Lots of mumbling, and as Holman said this in his testimony, he was trying to get a rapport with him. Actually, I think he didn't do that great of a job. I think Richard Allen was probably a bit more on the defense right away. So I could say it was an effort by Holman to make rapport. They talked military. Then he asked if they have any good indoor ranges in Delphi. Richard Allen's like, "I don't know." And then Holman tells him where he shoots his gun. And he said, like I said, let me just explain. This is what we seized. And they are all still testing a bunch. They're taking swabs. So Holman asks, "Look, but have you ever loaned anything out, like a car or a truck or clothes?" Richard Allen says, "If I have, I don't remember." Holman says, "Look, well, we need to talk about a test that we did get back. But before I get to that test," he states, "did you have any knives on the bridge?" Richard Allen says, "I didn't have any knives on the bridge." He said, "Well, they are his fingerprints are on a bullet that match with an item." And he shows Richard Allen the picture of the extraction. The methodology, he explains, is scientific. So I'm just showing you, and Richard Allen says, I don't need to read this. And Holman tries to explain, and Richard Allen quickly says, this is ridiculous. And Holman says, hold on, I'm on your side. You mentioned a fall guy and it being over. You said that that it was too late, the damage had been done. And we have experts saying, though, that it's you in this photo. Richard Allen says, I don't even know how my bullet would have gotten there. And then Holman reminds him, look, this is scientific. This cartridge was within 6 inches of Libby. And this cartridge matched your gun that we seized from the house. And it's scientific, within 6 inches of Libby's body. And then Richard Allen says, look, if that's what you're saying, it is not my round. And then Holman says, you were on the bridge. And Richard Allen says, look, I told you, but I can't tell you what happened that day. And then Holman says, good old classic, the truth will set you free. The truth, how your bullet was between 2 girls. If you're not that guy, you're not going down. And he says, Richard says, look, do you know what you're doing to me? You're talking to my coworkers, my family. I have all sorts of stress and anxiety and depression. And you are already saying I've done something. I don't like it when people say I've done something. Holman says, look, you were there. Your car was there. Richard Allen says, there is no way that round of mine was found at the crime scene. Holman says, I'm trying to help you. Richard Allen says, no, you are trying to take me down. I'm done. I'm going to go. You're trying to arrest me. The damage is done. I don't know what you want me to explain. Holman says, I would never, even if I wanted to do something like that. Oh, no, excuse me. It's Richard Allen. I marked the Holman. And he said, I would never do this. Even if I wanted to do something like that, it's not who I am. I thought that was interesting too. If I wanted to do something like that, it's not who I am. A little bit of self-verification there. I'm going to ask Dr. John about that one. And by that, I mean, whether he's innocent or guilty, oftentimes people do that, John explains, like when someone presents something, whether false or true about yourself, you'll sometimes, according to John, you have self-verification theory, which is like, I'm not that person. How could you say that about me? I don't know what that means. Innocent. I don't think it means innocence or guilt. It's just interesting. He says, even if I wanted to do something like that, it's not who I am. I did not murder 2 little girls. I also noticed this too. When he refers to Abby and Libby, Richard Allen either refers to them as Abby or Libby, or he refers to them as little girls. He goes, I did not murder 2 little girls. And Holman states, I'm being nice. And he goes, no, you're not. You're trying to get me to confess to killing 2 little girls. That round was collected on 2/13/2017, and it's been in evidence ever since. So Holman's now saying, like, look, this is what we have. It was collected. It's been in evidence ever since. He says, well, then it didn't come out of my gun. If it did, if it was by the girls or any crime scene, it wasn't me. Richard Allen says, hold on. Okay, and then Richard Allen says this. It's really interesting. So he says, look, then it didn't come from out of my gun. If it was by them, by the girls, or at any crime scene, it wasn't me. And he goes, look, I have been not wanting to live for 7 to 8 years now. It has been a battle. And do you know what you've done to me? And then Holman just responds, this gun, how did your cartridge get at the crime scene? He goes, I have never done that to Abby or Libby. I've never even met them. That's also something he says a lot too. He's never done this. He's never even met them. I think that's interesting. Just throwing it out there. Holman says, look, death penalty is on the table. Now they are sitting in the room. Now he's sitting in the room alone, looking quite still. His legs are crossed. And I notice oftentimes when Richard Allen is in the room alone during this interrogation, he doesn't touch his face or get nervous. Again, I notice he does that in the courtroom. Like he'll touch, he'll rub. When he's alone in interrogation room, maybe it's because he knows there's a camera there. Maybe it's just who he is, but he actually doesn't move that much. He does move some, but he's sitting in the room alone, looking quite still, and his legs are crossed as he waits for him to come back. So at this point, two people come back into the interrogation room. It's Holman again, and he has Vito with him. And they actually now start swabbing him for DNA, and he willingly lets them. So they're doing like swabs. Richard Allen is letting them. And then they leave again. And as they leave, Holman states, hey, look, the ball's in your court. And Richard Allen responds, you just took my DNA. And Holman says, look, I'm trying to help you. Why is this evidence all pointing at you? Experts are saying it is you. 5 witnesses who have seen you out there on the bridge with the girls. And he goes, they didn't see me with the girls because I wasn't around the girls that day. I'm not going to let you trick me into admitting that this is something I didn't do. I know that, and then they say, well, we know that a round from your gun. Oh, he goes, I know that a round from my gun didn't end up at the murder scene. And they state, I know you're involved with this. And Richard Allen says, involved with who? And Holman says, I don't know. You tell me. I'm showing you some of the evidence I've got. You tell me how you're involved. And then Holman mentions, look, the media isn't nice and social media isn't nice either. Why don't you just tell me what you know? And Richard Allen says, look, I've already told them. I've already told you the damage has been done. Holman says, well, you made a mistake. Richard Allen says, I am not going to admit to something I didn't do. Holman says, what did you do? Where's this guy? And then Richard Allen responds, tell me where this guy is that says I helped him. Holman says, you tell me where this guy is. Richard Allen says, I don't know. You said someone said that I'm involved. If you don't think I did it, what did I do? Holman says, I didn't say that. Richard Allen states, I'm done. If you are going to arrest me, arrest me. I'm not doing this. Holman again says, I'm trying to help you. Richard Allen says, I don't need you to help me. I think nothing you have will show me that I murdered 2 girls. Holman says, witnesses saw a gun in your pocket. Richard Allen says, no, they didn't. I'm saying I did not have a gun. Holman says, well, what the scientists are saying is this cartridge is unique, and it's unique to your gun. Richard Allen says, and what I'm telling you is there is no way a bullet from my gun ended up at the murder scene. Holman, scientists say the marks on the gun match yours. Richard Allen states, I have never shot anyone. I've never pointed my gun at anyone. They state, you said that you were there. He goes, yeah, I told you I was on the trail. I didn't tell you I was at a murder scene. I'm not going to tell you I was there so you can feel better about what you're doing. I'm done. They say, you and I both know what happened. The evidence shows there are missing pieces, but maybe you can help me to fill them in. Richard Allen, I didn't do this. I've never been around those 2 girls. I've never even seen them. I am not going to confess to something I didn't do. The day they asked if anyone who was on the trail to come out, that's when I went out. Oh my God, you obviously don't believe me. You don't believe me. And then Holman responds back with, well, you don't believe this evidence. And Richard Allen responds, I don't. There is no way possible. Holman states, look, I'm not. Oh, no. Richard Allen then says again, I am not going to sit here all day trying to convince you I didn't do it when you obviously think that I did. I told you, you guys are trying to trick me into telling you something. I don't know how to make this any clearer. I am not going to tell you I didn't do something that I didn't do. Holman then leaves the room again. Richard Allen just waits and sits by himself and just chills. The Richard Allen in the courtroom is watching himself on the screen. So Richard Allen is in the courtroom. He's watching this whole screen. It's very close to him, and he's just sitting watching. Richard Allen on the screen while we watch is just sitting there. There's little movement. He rubs his face kind of like this. He places his hands in his lap. He shakes his head kind of like this. I also noticed that he's a lot bigger in the video than he is now. Like, clearly he's been in prison. Like, he's pretty skinny. I mean, that's part of what the defense is saying, that he hasn't been, eating or healthy. And I just noticed that's another thing, that he is bulkier in the interrogation video. Then okay, hold on. I just want to make sure this is right. So I think this is the moment where Kathy comes into the video, but I want to make sure. Okay, I wrote Kathy on the page, so forgive me. I don't know if Kathy comes in at this moment. Forgive me. I think that like she came in for a second. Oh, okay, I know what it is. Holman walks back in without Kathy Allen. She comes in later. And that's when Holman brings up his wife. And he says, Kathy says, da, 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 da. And that's when Richard Allen says, I think I know my wife. Telling her that your depression has gotten worse. And that's when Richard Allen says, look, this has been going on for 6 to 7 years. I have depression too. Oh, no, Holman says, look, dude, I've got depression too, trying to relate to him. And then Holman says, look, here's my theory. This is interesting. We've got Holman's theory here. Here's my theory. He says, you're out there. You have a gun. We know you have anger issues. Your wife told us that. You have depression. You see the girls. You order one of them down the hill. They pop off. You have a round in the chamber. You pull the round and you eject the rack. And Richard Allen's response to this theory is, I didn't kill 2 little girls! ! And Holman responds, what did you do? And Richard Allen says, I went on a walk on the trail and then I went home. Holman says, evidence doesn't lie. Richard Allen responds, obviously it does. And Holman responds, do you not believe in science? Richard Allen, I believe in science. Holman, well, a scientist said that your bullet was at the crime scene. Richard Allen, I'm trying to tell you my bullet wasn't found at the bridge or the murder scene. Holman, well, if you believe in science, then ... Richard Allen, I'm telling you, any round found at the scene did not come from my gun. Holman, tell me. I'm all ears. Silence. There's a moment of silence between the two of them, totally quiet, just sitting there. Richard Allen, I've got nothing to say. Holman, so you're saying you didn't have a gun on you? Richard Allen, well, I carry a gun if I'm fishing or mushroom hunting. That's the only time I carry a gun. Holman, okay, so were you mushroom hunting? Richard Allen, why would I be mushroom hunting? There are mushrooms over there, by the way. Just saying. I did see them. So it's a valid question, I think. Holman, did you rack your gun on the trail? Richard Allen, I didn't have my gun that day. Holman, were you out there target practicing one day? Silence. Holman, I'm just trying to figure it out. I know where mushrooms grow and fish. Why carry it then? Richard Allen, because you're out and you don't know who you're going to run into to protect yourself. Holman, I'm not making this up. I'm not lying to you. Richard Allen, you obviously are. Holman, I'm not making this up. You tell me you watch Dateline and I'm telling you the truth. Holman, item 16 is the round and it compared to your gun. Richard Allen, you're saying it happened, but I'm telling you there is no way it happened. Holman, you think I made this up? Richard Allen, what do you want me to say? Holman, Tell me how I'm making it up. Richard Allen, I never said you made it up. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying there is no way that my round was found at the crime scene. I can't, Holman, I can't make this up. You and I both know that. Then there's a bunch I missed, honestly, because it got really heated. And then Holman leaves again. And then he returns and he offers to bring in Kathy Allen, who is outside the room. And he also offers Richard Allen to let him smoke. And Holman leaves. Then he comes in and he offers to get Kathy again. And then his phone rings. And we hear that on the video, like his phone ringing. So he says, look, with medications, people make bad decisions, even good people. And he says, she doesn't think I'm making anything up. Only one person can know, and that's, Holman says this about Kathy. So Kathy isn't in the room yet. He says, look, even medications make people make bad decisions, even good decisions. And then he says, she, meaning Kathy. Look, Kathy doesn't think I'm making anything up. And only one person could know, and that's you. And then Richard Allen responds, oh God, I didn't do anything. I didn't kill 2 little girls. I didn't help someone kill 2 little girls. I never even saw them before. That's when Kathy walks in. And I don't know if Holman is in the room or not, but I didn't see him in this moment. It looked like Kathy and Richard were completely alone at this moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were. So I think that Kathy and Richard were alone at this moment. So she walks in. Of course, there's a camera, but they're giving him alone time. They walk in, and she hugs Richard, and it is a very long hug. They embrace, and then Richard states to her, I'm so sorry. And then they let go of one another and they look at each other. They sit down and he says, they actually believe that I did it. I can't believe it. Kathy's quiet. And then she actually says something, but she is so quiet. I cannot hear what she's saying. Like she's very softly speaking to Richard Allen in this room. She says, I know. Oh, and then he responds to her, I know. I can't explain something that I don't understand. And then he looks at his wife. You know me. You know this is something I didn't do. I know you know that. And I know you know that I know. And Kathy is crying. Richard Allen says, I don't know what to say other than I don't know, because it's impossible. I don't need to try to convince you. I know that you know me. They talk a little bit more. Kathy says, how did your gun get out there? They think you did it. There's tears and it's inaudible. I can't understand what Kathy's saying in the video. Richard Allen says, I can't explain it. It's impossible. More tears, inaudible. And then in the courtroom, Kathy watching this, watching her and her husband, has real tears. She is very upset in the courtroom. Richard Allen says, I get what they're saying. Kathy says this on the video. They say they knew it was you, that you were on the bridge. Richard Allen says to Kathy, I told them I was on the bridge. I told them I was on the first trestle. Richard Allen, I love you, baby. She responds, I love you too. Kathy asks him more questions. I can't completely hear him. Richard Allen says to her, this is exactly what I would never want for you. I am not going to say it's something I didn't do when I didn't do it. And then he says, I know that you know I didn't do this. All I can say, honey, is inaudible. They are going to do whatever they are going to do. I'm sorry you have to hurt. I'm sorry I'm going through it. You know I care about what people think, and I try not to. She says, I know. They're trying to talk about my anxiety and shit, and I've been dealing with that for 7 to 8 years, my whole life. They want me to admit I did it. I'm not going to say I did something I didn't do. You tell me because I don't understand that. I told them I carry a gun when hunting or fishing in the woods. But I don't even remember the last time I carried it. Kathy cries, inaudible. I get that, he responds to her. I get what they are saying, but there is no way. I cannot explain something. Then they actually both stare at each other for a long time in silence. It was kind of moving. Like they just looked at each other and stared, like sort of understanding the heaviness of this. Then Richard Allen says to Kathy, they want to make you come in here and make you believe I did it. You know me too well. You know that I couldn't do this. Then he says, don't worry about me. Okay, so then it's redacted. And when it comes back on, Kathy is gone. I need a drink, so much talking. So Kathy's gone. It comes back. And Holman comes back in. And it gets really, really heated at this point. And I was not able to get everything. But I'll just explain. It gets really, really heated. Like every other word is the F word. I'll share some of them, but not all of them, because it was like, I mean, even I was like, did we really need? It was just funny. Like, okay, so Holman walks back in, and the first thing he says is, "You were fucking there, Rich. Now you're going to drag your fucking wife and daughter in this because." You're too fucking, I didn't get the last word. The evidence clearly. And then Richard Allen responds, no, it doesn't. And Holman responds, it fucking does. I'm saying we've had this fucking round in the lab. I can't explain something I don't understand. It's not possible. It was taken. It was photographed. You think I effing threw it down there? The effing analyst effing explained it to me. Can you let me and my wife have a time? Holman leaves. And then he says, you're putting your effing wife and daughter through this. Audible sobs from Richard's father now in the courtroom. That is the first I've seen. So remember, watching this entire thing, sitting next to Kathy is Richard's father. And I look over and I see him just crying, and I hear him crying. It was really heavy. And he is still sitting next to Kathy, his daughter-in-law. He hugs, and then in the video, Kathy comes back into the video. So she wasn't there during that like screaming match. Now he's back in. Exactly, Duty Ron. He hugs Kathy in the video, and she is so this was an interesting moment. So Kathy comes back in, and he hugs Kathy in the video, but Kathy does not hug him back. Now, I do want to point out, though, that she is holding her purse. So women that hold purses know that sometimes you can't easily hug someone with a purse. So I'll give her that. But I do want to point out, she comes back into the video. They're alone in the room. He hugs her, embraces her, and she does not put her arm that I can see around him, but she's holding a purse. She does not hug back. They do there's a brief kiss. She leaves. Holman comes back in yelling and screaming, like literally walking back in, yelling and screaming. He goes, I'm effing pissed off. And then Richard said, leave my wife out of this. You are going to pay for what you did to my wife. That was a moment. And that's when Holman says, I'm effing pissed off. And Richard Allen says, I'm pissed off. This is on you. The jury has to ask. Then there is actual screaming, like screams and slamming fists and and it's mostly Holman. I mean, Richard Allen's yelling too, but it's like Holman, F this, F that, F, to the point where like, how we can't hear anything in the courtroom. It was all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, it's too loud, too much. And it cuts. Because it was so loud at the end of the video and we couldn't hear it, Judge Gull reads the rest of the arrest. And that was interesting. So Judge Gull reads the transcript. I couldn't get it, so it was so quick, but she says that something about the fucking police. Like, this is Judge Gull quoting it. It was so intense. And then just to have Judge Gull has this very calm voice. She's very soft-spoken, very quiet. She'll say, sustain, or, whatever, except for when she doesn't. And then, so just to have her reading in that very calm voice, like this very intense end of the argument, was like a really interesting, like using, quoting it verbatim, using the F word, sharing what was said until Richard Allen was detained. The arrest happens. And that was the break for lunch. And I run back out. I do my lunch live. Someone mentioned I'm very biased. The best part about this, guys, I haven't said anything that wasn't stated in court today. I am just reading what was in court. I think this case needs more journalists and less, yeah. So I am being a journalist and bringing you what is in court. I mean, I'm doing my best. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. And thanks for all your efforts, Judy Ron. Thanks for sharing what you know as retired law enforcement, NYPD, and everyone else in here that's an expert on this case. So I came out, did my lunch live, and I was like, you guys, it's wild what you did. Oh, but after lunch was wild. Was wild. It was wild. Okay. So after lunch, we have a new witness, and we're going to get through this. Thank you, everyone that's here. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you to moderators. This is a very large live stream. And oh, thank you to everyone. I even see that somebody's in there slowing it. Thank you to everyone. Okay, I got my text. Let's continue on. So we have a new witness. This is the first of 6 after lunch. Again, we were there after 6 p.m. This is John Galibau, Galibau. So if I mispronounce that, forgive me. Right, exactly. So this is the Indiana Department of Corrections employee, and he was this person comes on. So he works at the Indiana Department of Corrections. He explains a lot of background. I'll explain it now, and just so you know, he explains. So he's the warden. Okay, and so they start with the warden of where Richard Allen was held. And again, yeah, this is the state presenting their witnesses, and they bring him on. And so it is McClelland doing the questioning, and he starts by saying, was this where Richard Allen was held? And they say yes. And was he in a cell by himself? And yeah, he was in a cell by himself. It was a 12-foot by 8-foot cell. McClelland asks, are they all the same size? And they said, yes, all of the cells are the same size. This was in an observation cell due to S-Watch. Guys, I'm going to have to call it S-Watch. You guys all know what that is. I need to respect YouTube's rules. And so I'm not trying to downgrade what S-Watch is, but when you're in a prison and there's S-Watch, self-harm, okay? And I'm gonna have to call it S-Watch. Forgive me. So he was on S-Watch, and there was a bed and a bed frame and a mattress, and he was allowed to shower 3 times a week, and he had a toilet, and he was provided 3 sets of clothing, and he was provided clean clothes 3 times a week. He had an electronic tablet. He had apps on the tablet, music on the tablet. He made phone calls on the tablet, or could make phone calls on the tablet. He had recreation time 5 times a week. He was seen by medical personnel daily on S-Watch. He was afforded face-to-face with family twice. Others were not allowed that. So they said he was allowed 2 face-to-faces with his family while others were not. He was in a place again where people there observe him. So they're called S companions. So when there's self-harm that's a concern, there are S companions that help to watch those on S-Watch. They originally, as many people have complained, which I get it, and the defense made a complaint. They used to have inmates do this as part of this S companion program, but they did switch it to correctional officers. And we're going to hear from a lot of those today. By the way, this witness, John, he was interesting. He's bald, he's tall, he's in a suit. He has a tie on, he's got a pin, he looks very professional, and he was very non-emotional. Like the most stoic witness I've ever seen on the stand so far. He would say, "Yes, sir," "No, sir," direct answers, but probably not even with that much emotion. Just like, "No, sir," "Yes, sir," "Nope," "Yes." Um, he had a presence, and he was just very direct. So as McClelland continues his questioning, he says that they changed the S companions um, to correctional officers due to privacy. And the warden saw him daily. He was quiet at first, but he changed from not being so quiet on the very day that he got his legal mail. And he's questioned more, what does that mean? And the warden explains that the day he got his legal mail, he was ripping it up. He was cleaning his face in the toilet. He was defecating in his cell. He changed to, and that is when he changed to correctional officials then. And then he saw some, I don't know, he saw a few times a week. I forgive me. I must not have gotten that whole sentence, missed that one. Forgive me. Something a few times a week. He requested, oh, he saw his attorney. He requested to speak to him. I've got it. I know what it is. The warden. He saw the warden a few times a week because Richard Allen requested to speak to him, the man, John Gallibo, that is testifying. Forgive me. Sometimes I just have a hard time reading my notes. It's like, and I'm reading them in real time with all of you. I'm like, that's what I was trying to say. So he requested to speak to John and said he wanted to confess what he did. And he, according to John, did this twice in person with him and then in notes to him. And he would request a chaplain from me, John stated, the warden John, or request a Bible from him. And then he said that the March 5th, 2023 request from Mr. Allen came in the form of a note, and it stated, "I am ready to officially confess to killing Libby and Abby and tell the families sorry." Now, just so you know, throughout the entire afternoon, the jury is seeing all of these notes. The gallery is not. I could not see these notes. I do want to show you a really interesting tweet, or what do we call it now? X's? An X, an XEX, little XE, that was X'd out, that I think explains it's actually, it's, you'll see. One second. This is what I believe looked like what the jury saw. So this was posted last week, and Angela states, "Today our team at Fox 59 was able to view hundreds of documents, depositions, exhibits, etc., involved with the Delphi murder case. Our team had to fight hard over many weeks to get access. One of the highlights is a prosecution exhibit of Richard Allen's handwritten confession to the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. Our team got permission from Special Judge Marianne Voorhees to make and use this recreation on air and online. Below is a recreation of it. Our team took special care to make it look as similar to the original as we could. Allen writes that he is ready to confess to killing Abby and Libby and to tell the families he is sorry." That was posted October 22nd. I did retweet it. Is one of the last tweets. Xe. And I'm bringing it up now because it is my assumption that this is the note that the jury saw today, or the original, not the not the recreation of it, because that is verbatim what is stated here. "I am ready to officially confess to killing Libby and Abby and tell the family sorry." So just wanted to point that out. So he brings that up. The jury is seeing a note that I assume looks like this. And then the warden, John, says, he told me that he used a box cutter and then he disposed of the box cutter in a dumpster in CVS. He was not changed any treatment after these confessions. And John, Warden John, observed Richard Allen throughout his stay. And then we had a cross exam. So a question from, let me remove this. Question from the cross exam. And so, by the way, I didn't state this earlier. Forgive me. This is the Westville Correctional Facility. You'll learn all about it. Rosie did all defense cross today, and McClelland did all the state's questioning. So if I ever say defense, you can just know who it is. It's Rosie. If I talking about the state or the prosecution, it's McClelland today. They did everything today. They both did a very good job. So Rosie says, so he landed in your facility due to a safety order. This is where Warden John gets very short and sweet. He goes, correct. And he said, and this is a medium correctional facility. And he says, medium to maximum. And you're the warden of the prison? Yes. And Rosie says, this usually houses people that are convicted, but your job is to keep them safe, and it falls on you. Warden John, yes. People are there for murder? Yes. Yes. Robbery? Yes. Arson? Yes. It has a maximum facility there. Correct. Is Westville an outdated facility at this time? Actually, it is one of the newest facilities. Sorry, guys, I'm going to clear my throat and get a drink. That drink is showing you how much we have to get through. I just needed some water so that I don't have to mute it anymore. So sorry, I pounded that. Let's get going. Okay. Going back a little bit. Rosie says, is Westville an outdated facility at this time? No, it's one of the newest facilities. Rosie, but they are shutting down and building a new one. Answer, yes. So it's not suitable? Answer, it's suitable. There's a pic of a Westville Correctional Facility right here. Prosecution states objection. They don't see relevance, but judge does not sustain the objection. Rosie shows a map of the correctional facility unit showing it's the most secure correctional facility in Indiana. Warden John, actually, it's just one of them, one of three. It is very secure. It was Rosie that said it's very secure. Answer, pretty good. You punish them there? Warden, I wouldn't say punish. They're convicted. You refer to this as loosely. You say punish them loosely, but you refer to it as the whole. He says, oh, that's what he said. I wouldn't say punish. They're convicted. Each pod, Rosie says, has 50 to 60 units. Yes. By the way, I've got to go back. When he stated they're convicted, it would have been a great time for Rosie to say, but my client wasn't convicted, because I think that is a big issue here, right? Is that Richard Allen is not a convicted felon at this time. But that might be a little teaser. Later on, he does that. So, but he didn't get it in here. Question. Each pod has 50 to 60 units. Yes. And by the way, I'm like literally quoting Warden John. Like 1 to 2 word answers were his typical. So oftentimes like not even a full sentence. So a lot of these are direct quotes from Warden John. Rick was in a pod S center. Correct. When you put someone in a cell and it's for, S or self-harm watch. They're there for something days, and unfortunately, I didn't get that. I put blank days. I don't know what it is. Answer from Warden John, yes. Then the other cells are empty for the people who need it. Answer, correct. Richard Allen's mattress was bolted on the floor. Answer, actually, it was lifted. It was bolted off of the floor. How long have you... Oh, he's been the warden at Bestville for 5 years. Wait, did I miss? Okay. You've been the warden at Bestville for 5 years? Yes. And he was held for over a year? Yes. Has anyone else that's ever been innocent been held there? Answer, not that I believe. But he was on S watch? Yes. So was there anything that showed he was capable of self-harm? Answer, he came to us on S watch. Was Rich a unique criminal? No. But he came on S watch? Yes. And so you must have looked at his history. I didn't. I have 3,000 prisoners. But there's a camera watching them 24 hours a day. Yes. And there are lights and are on there all the time due to S watch. Answer, well, we dimmed the lights at times. And outside of the window, he's looking at what? And I don't hear what he's looking at, but clearly it's not a view. It's not a cell with a view. Yes, thank you, Troublemaker Baker. There is a toilet by the bed. Yes, it's to the right of it. Yes. The other side of this prison is general population, and they yell. But Mr. Allen is in a space all on his own, and he has no social contact. Answer, he has no physical contact. By the way, this is what I call a jury tennis match. They are looking at Rosie. They are looking at the warden. Rosie, warden. Rosie, warden. They are in the zone. He has no desk and no chair. No. Richard Allen is not in general pop. No. Rick gets recreation 5 days a week? Yes. I write again, such a stoic witness. There are 4 walls and a screen. Is it too far to call this a cage? Oh, they're referring to the rec room. So the rec room has 4 walls, a screen. Is it too far to call it a cage? Answer, I'd call it a rec room. But this is so small. He goes, it's a prison. When you are on suicide watch, there are no board games or cards. He actually has games on his tablet and movies that he can pay for. But does he have phone calls to his family? Yes, he has phone calls, but they are recorded. And he has monitored tablet use? Yes. But there were times that he didn't have a tablet. Answer, yes, after he broke his. But you told him he might not have one for a month. Yes. Well, Rick's S watch was reduced because he had constant supervision and the levels changed. Answer, no, he was on constant observation. Well, you issued a kimono or a gown for him to wear. Answer, it was a gown that covers the shoulders to the knees. Well, do you recall days that they were there? I think he means his attorneys. And he says, I recall a few. And do you recall a day a family visited? Yes, there were a couple of days his family visited. And did he have handcuffs when being transported? Oh, did he have handcuffs? Yes, for transportation. And shackles? Yes. How was he restrained? Answer, he had a belly chain and a lead for transport. A witness, and then Rosie says, you mean he had a leash? And the witness actually laughed at that. It was the only time I saw him break. So here's this stoic witness. The one time he broke was when Rosie said, so a leash? And Warden John laughs and says, it's a lead. And Rosie says, well, it's like a leash. And Warden John says, no, it's not. And Rosie says, well, it's nylon length strap. And then there's an objection by the state, and they said asked and answered, and it was sustained. Question, do you get mail? Yes, it's scanned. We went there with, it's scanned. Yeah, we get mail, it's scanned. And then Rosie says, well, we went there with a discovery, and it took 2 weeks to get to him. Answer, it was 400 pages of discovery. It was a lot of pages to scan. Well, we were restricted. We couldn't even take our phones in as his attorneys. And then there's an objection to relevance. And Rosie and the defense argued that their phones impacted their ability to communicate with him. And the judge overruled the state's objection, and the defense was able to continue. So they got that phone. They were not able to take their phones in with them. Question from Rosie, the defense. Well, you recorded us with him while we spoke to him. And he answered yes, because it was a visitation. Well, twice he goes, you used a stun gun on him, or not, he didn't say stun gun. I don't know what he said, but Warden John referred to it as a zap, and I missed what it was called above. So I don't know. Don't quote me on stun gun. That was never said that I know of. There's something referring to as a zap. Maybe Duty Ron or other law enforcement in the chat can tell me if I'm guessing right. So they said, well, you zapped him twice, or you zapped him while he was in there. And Warden John responded twice. When he refused to remove his hands so that we could secure his door, he was non-compliant, but you zapped him. We asked him several times and he wasn't compliant. And that's what they said. So you zapped him. He responded, it was a safety issue. Was he treated like all of the others? And then the answer to that by Warden John is he was treated better. That was a moment. That was interesting. So Rosie says, was he treated like all the others? He was treated better. Tell us about S Companions. It's a program at the prison. And did you ever finally remove him? Warden John's answer, I removed him when he got his legal mail for his protection. And the same day he got his legal mail, he made a switch the same day he got his legal mail. So in other words, I think that maybe they didn't remove him from the S program. I might be reading that wrong, but they're talking about removing him from something. They're saying that something happened when he got his legal mail, and they're referring to him like his behavior changing. And this was, so maybe they did remove him. It was right around the time he started acting up. Right. So did you generate a report on the day that you got this legal letter? Answer, if I get a request, I turn it over. But you never prepared a report. Objection, asked and answered, sustained. Have you ever gotten a log sheet from a criminal who is incriminated? I don't know the answer to that one. I think it was probably, I don't know. Question, had law enforcement ever come up to help because he was confessing something? Correct. Due to his health, did you have to talk to Dr. Walla? By the way, Dr. Walla is, we know that she's his psychologist. Oh, thank you. I was just told, thank you, that this is sounding awful on audio. I got to be careful. Thank you. I have roomies and they're watching out for me. They're watching in the other room. They're like, you got to stop. So let me just move this and hopefully that'll help. I can hold it up with my hands. Hopefully that helps you guys. So were law enforcement did they ever come up to help because he was confessing? Correct. And due to his health, did you have him talk to Dr. Walla? Answer, oh, sure. Did no one ever check on him beyond that? Not that I recall. Richard Allen was moved, and it wasn't my choice. Answer, yes, he was moved. You were on his team with administrative docs and people. And then he said he was not on a team. Answer, well, I'd pop in. It was not on a team. I would pop in and we would move a lot of the inmates every day. Question by Rosie. Can prison be hard on people? Answer. It's an adjustment. Especially for people who haven't been to prison before, Rosie asks. Answer by John Warden. It's an adjustment, yes. Rosie, did you review Richard Allen in his cell? Objection. Outside the scope of crime. Rosie, do you know when Richard Allen received the legal letter? And did you put him on S watch? Answer. Dr. Walla is the one who put him on S watch. It came from his medical supervisor to keep him safe. He came to us on an S order, and then he was put on S watch. I did put admittedly, so I do want to point out that admittedly, the tone is making Rosie not so great. So I want to point this out because I made a note of it here. Rosie is being like super passionate and like kind of like outraged. And when you match that with this like extreme stoic one-word answers by Warden John, I don't know if it was the best look for Rosie. Like, I think he's done better, but it could just like this was a really interesting witness. Like he was just like boom. So I just want to share that like Rosie is asking this like very outraged, very like upset, and he is not getting any emotion back from the witness, just like these one-word answers. So he's saying like he came to you on S watch and then he was put on S watch. So kind of like that. And then Warden John says he was put on S watch by his medical supervisor to keep him safe. So it's sort of like that back and forth. This was an interesting back and forth. So after that, they asked if there were any jury questions, and there were none. And I just said at the end, the witness kept his cool throughout the entire time. And it was, that was that. The next witness is Ethan Drang, Drang. Forgive me if I mispronounced that. We'll call him Ethan. He admittedly, my heart went out to him. He was young and he looked a bit timid. He is an employee at Westville and he's been there for 2.5 years. He did his training to become a correctional officer and H group. He worked all over the facility and he knows Richard Allen as an inmate because he was placed on an S watch with an officer. So I'm going to explain that the next witnesses until the end of the day all have the same background. They were all placed as on S watch. They were his S companion. So Ethan explains that he had to sit in front of the cell and log all events throughout the day. 15-minute log. In other words, they had to do a log every 15 minutes. And then to remind you, because we have heard that there was a time where inmates were being the S companions, these are not inmates. Every single one of the witnesses until the end of the day are employees at the Westville, and they most of them are correctional officials. We'll go over each of there, but they are employees. So their job is to sit in the cell and log all events throughout the day, especially when someone is on S watch. And every 15 minutes, they have to put a log of what is happening, and they submit that every 15 minutes throughout their entire shift. So on April 5th, 23, they admit an exhibit to the jury. And again, the gallery never saw any of what they admitted to the jury today. So all we had to do was listen hard. A lot of their voices were quiet and write down what we could hear. But the jury is getting all of their logs. So every log that these gentlemen today and these witnesses today had are being given to the jury. So they admit the exhibit, and he explains that on April 5th, 2023, at 6 a.m. shift change, he starts watching Richard Allen. And by the way, during this witness, I checked with all my neighbors. There was a little confusion as to whether there was a March 5th and an April 5th, because at first it seemed like there was an April 5th log that was important and a March 5th log. In the end, two of us concluded that the 3-5 was a mistake and they were all supposed to be April 5th. Take that for what it's worth. I'm going to say the April 5th was all one day on this log. but they did mention March. So April 5th at 8:36 a.m. This was said allegedly by Richard Allen and was recorded in the log. Coming to prison cured my anxiety and depression and allowed me to find God. And then at 9:52 a.m. on that same day, he says, I want to confess to killing Abby and Libby, and I want to apologize to their families. Ethan says that I'm no mental health professional, but we do have training to de-escalate. That's asked by the cross. So now this is Rosie. Do you have the training to decide if someone is faking it? No. Can you identify Richard Allen in this room? Yes, he's in there. He's wearing khakis and a shirt. So Rosie asks, was he in pretty bad shape then? And then he responds, I am no mental health professional, Ethan says. Rosie, well, he was pretty emotional. Ethan, he had emotions that day. Rosie, at 8:46 a.m., he states that the prison helped cure my depression and anxiety. Answer, yeah, it says that, but I'm no mental health. He said that, but I'm no mental health professional. Rosie, I think I can't read my writing. But the mental I can read it now. The mental health professional rarely came, like maybe once a week. Ethan's answer, actually, they came quite often. Nothing further, Your Honor. Now the state comes back to ask Ethan a couple more questions. Ethan is no health professional. He only knows triggers. Like often when an inmate talks to a family, they might go into the cell and skip a meal. That's only really what he knows and is aware of. So did Richard Allen do that after talking to his wife? Ethan says, yes, he did do that. And that's that. The next witness is Michael Clemens. Michael Clemens is with the Westville Correctional Facility. He's been there for 4 years. He did the 2-month program that most of these young men did. Not all of them are young men, but most of them were. And by young, I mean looking younger than me, like 20s and 30s. And he had the day shift from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and he was in A5 and he was placed at Westville. He was an S companion that watched Richard Allen and documented and filled out paperwork and turned into his lieutenant the day he saw Mr. Allen. Exhibit 294, Michael filled it out, and Michael recognizes the sheet as it's being submitted as evidence and given to the jury. On April 17th, 2003, according to Michael Clemens, Richard Allen stated, God, I am so glad that no one gave up on me after I killed Abby and Libby. And then he is asked again, did he say that? Yes. And then at 8:01 a.m., I, Richard Matthew Allen, killed Abby and Libby all by myself. No one helped me. And then, so that was at 7:30 a.m. And then at 8:01 a.m., quote, I'm not crazy. I'm only acting like I'm crazy, end quote. They asked, did you write all of this down immediately? He states, yes, I did. We are always told to write everything down immediately. Michael explains. How long were you his S companion? I would observe Richard Allen every single time I worked, every shift. What was his behavior like? It was normal. Did his behavior ever change? Yes, he started acting different. How different? Random things, like I don't know. He was kind of hesitant to say. He actually got very hesitant to answer any of these questions. And then it was cross with Rosie. He explained, did Richard Allen ever say what he did? Yes, Michael says. He said he killed them. but he never said how. Correct. He never said how. And at one point he said God. Yes. Question. I'm not crazy. I'm only acting like I'm crazy. Was that in response to inmates? Michael says, I don't recall. Answer. Can I refresh your memory? Yes. So he hands something to Michael to read. And he refreshes his memory and says, yes, I'm pretty sure that's why then. A bunch of people were yelling. So then he continues. So in fact, were some inmates actually harassing Richard Allen? Michael, no. Well, were they telling him to kill himself? And he says, maybe. I don't know. Rosie then keeps pushing. Michael doesn't really know or think that he was harassed. He does know, Michael does know Dr. Walla, yes. And you assumed that he was in normal mental health, Richard Allen? Yes. Well, were you there when he was tased that day? Yes. Well, it's a secure facility in Indiana, right? Yes. You said it started out normal, but things changed. Did you ever see him banging his head or eating his feces? No. Rosie, but he would go from acting normal to acting crazy? Yes. Are there any questions from the jury? No. The next witness after lunch, witness another Michael. This witness, though, is witness Michael Roberts. He's at Westville Correctional Facility. Though he has the other training like the other first two gentlemen did. He has a shift from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And he was assigned to Richard Allen as his S companion. He logs and has docs filled, and he fills the logs with everything that Richard Allen says. And they ask him if he noted it in real time. He says, yes. Do your reports reflect that? He says, yes. And they submit State Exhibit 295. They have logs of everything that day. He says that he is the author. He sees the dates and times. And then they say, let's draw your attention to this April 13th at 12:45 p.m. And it says, quote, Dear Lord, forgive me for molesting Abby, Libby, and Chris. Then he states, Dear Lord, forgive me for molesting Abby, Libby, Kevin, and Chris. And then another thing later, quote, I want to confess. I know a lot more, end quote. And then at 8:15 a.m., there's a quote from Richard Allen, what more do I got to do, end quote. At April 23rd, 2024, so that would be just this year, at 2 p.m., quote, I killed Abby and Libby. My wife wasn't involved, and I would like to confess, end quote. On April 26th, he says, can I talk? Can you listen? I killed Abby and Libby. And then another one later that day. How can I prove I'm sane? How can I prove ... I did not get the rest of that one. Sorry, guys. They were very quiet. Another one. Why am I doing this? Do you know God? I killed Abby and Libby, end quote. That was June 18th. Excuse me. That was June 18th. June 21st log. Do I make you mad? Have I told you about my wife? Should I lay down? I killed Abby and Libby. I look over at Kathy at this moment and she's shaking her head like this, looking down. And then this Michael, the second Michael of the witness today, said that he was normal, coherent, talkative, and sane. He changed to signs. He changed, though, and it was signs he recognized like more outrageous. Richard Allen started doing things that would make you gasp and get his attention. Like he would act up when we weren't looking, or when we were looking. He would act up when we were looking. He would not act up when we weren't looking. The jurors are taking notes at this time. The chaplain would come and he would talk to Richard Allen. The defense then has an objection, hearsay, and the judge sustains the defense's objection. He would talk, Michael continues, he would talk about his family and what he wanted. And then he identified Richard Allen in the room. Rosie then has crossed, and then he questions this new Michael. And he says, January to April, he was normal. And then his attorneys came in and he acted up. Yes, at least 4 times. The attorneys would come in, Michael explains, sometimes with an intern. And they show exhibit now 295, a number of things that Richard Allen claims he did. That he molested Dawn, he molested Abby, he molested Libby, he molested Chris, and he molested Kevin. And that's when he started smearing feces all over his cell. Question, oh, was he a pain in the butt? Rosie asks. Answer, yeah, sometimes doing that for attention. It's hard on all of us. Question, will all of the inmates that do all of the inmates do that for attention? Answer, not all of them. Well, you say there's like a difference between eating feces and smearing feces. Answer, yes. One takes more of it to do. One takes more to do, like more effort. I assume the eating of it. Rosie asks, well, if you told me he was eating his feces, would your opinion change of him? His answer is, well, I would need to observe it for my opinion to change. Question, were there a lot of inmates? Yes, there were a lot in that pod. And question, would they smear feces? And when they smeared feces, would you not do anything? And his answer is, well, I didn't give it attention. So you didn't call anyone for help when Richard Allen was smearing feces? Answer, no, I called someone right away. And Rosie says, but nobody came for 2 hours? Answer, well, no, someone actually did come right away, a mental health person. And then did he tell you that his grandma molested him? Yes. And by the way, I heard grandma molested him. My neighbor heard grandma molest him. And another person thought they heard grandpa. I feel pretty confident about grandma, but because of that one person, grandma, but because of that one person that said grandpa, let's just say grandparent. So Richard Allen claims a grandparent molested him. To this, Michael, yes. And he told you that he wanted KFC? Yes. And he wanted his last rites read? Yes. Lawyers can visit, correct? But they need to be monitored? Yes. Do you recall Richard Allen tapping his head on the wall? Yes. And you gave him no sympathy? Michael says, I never said that I had no sympathy for him. Well, do you think it was unusual for him to be tapping his head on the wall? Answer, no, it was actually pretty normal tapping. It wasn't hitting the wall hard. It is actually common for someone who doesn't have a lot to do in their cell to maybe try tapping. But then was he bruised? Rosie asks. Answer, yes. When I noticed that he was bruised, I got some medical attention right away. And no S companions had issues. Did you say that RA accepted what was happening? Yes. Rosie asks, was he accepting that he was thrown in the more secure system? And did he accept that he had to sleep on a concrete floor? His answer is he didn't have to sleep on the concrete floor. He had a mat. Well, did he accept that he had a toilet by his bed? Answer, well, he did, but nobody could see and he had a privacy. Did he accept that he didn't have clothes, only a gown? Answer, that's what happens when you're on S-Watch. A new note at 1:30 p.m. I'm not sure of the date. Forgive me. I don't have the date here. But here's another note. This was at 1:30 p.m. Quote, God, I'm so sorry for wasting your time. I will never smoke or cheat on my wife again. I'm a Libra. And then at 8:45 a.m., I don't know what day again, he quotes, I swear I never cheated on a cigarette. I thought I was eating pizza. Question, well, would you agree putting someone in a cell like this would be detrimental to their mental health? Answer, it depends on the person. Rosie pushes the witness, and then there's an objection, asked and answered, and it's sustained. Question, did the mental health official come? Yes, the mental health expert came often, and they brought crayons and they took him to the rec room. Rosie says, oh, do you mean the cage? Answer, no, it's a cubicle. Well, what's it like? Answer, it's a square room. Questions for the juror. Here are the questions that the jurors have for Michael. Is everything you record on your log on audio or video recording? Answer is yes, it is. Are they saved, these audio or video recordings? Yes, they are in the database. What would happen, one juror asks, if someone does have feces on their face? And he explains that they would get to shower and that they would shower in a separate room that's private, and they would help wash them. When would he not be washed if on S watch? And I couldn't hear an answer to that question. And then it was afternoon recess. And after the break, we came back. It was 4:30. So I thought we had maybe like one other witness. And like usually we're ending around 5, sometimes a little bit later. The latest we've gone to 6. No. Let's get going. Next witness after the break, starting at 4:30, is witness Officer James Early. Officer James Early has a very long goatee. Reminded me of Richard Allen in his interviews. James Early is a correctional officer, and he works at Westville, and he was RA's, Richard Allen's, that's how I put RA in my notes, Richard Allen's suicide companion. And he would rotate several months. And as a suicide companion, he would also fill out this paperwork every 15 minutes. And Exhibit 296 is from April 8th, 2023, and April 9th and May 1st, 2023. April 8th at 4:33, he says, I am ready to confess. I swear to God, I killed Abby and Libby. May 1st at 8:50, James explains that Richard Allen walks back and forth, mimicking James Early's behavior, sort of like copying him or mimicking him, and states, I confess to the warden and Dr. Walla. And then I put that they put this confession down in real time. I don't know what that means. So here's now it's the defense's turn to question this witness. They say, standing in front of a toilet, feces, rolling it in a ball, took a drink from the toilet. There's hot sauce, and he's yelling, Foxtrot, Foxy Lady, fuck me. On April 8th, he says he has a bottle of hot sauce, and he's urinating on his map, and he's mumbling. On April 9th, May 1st, he's pacing and mumbling. On May 1st, he's awake, and so is the staff. Every 15 minutes later, he was asleep. That was it. I mean, that was like, Rosie was kind of like explaining all that, and then it was just like, yeah, that happened. So it was like a back and forth, and they're like, yep, those are some more logs. That's some more logs I've got that I have on him. So now it's the prosecution, the state's turn again, and they ask James Early, did his bizarre behavior seem orchestrated? And James Early's response is, he had a very normal look, and he would say, yes, sir, and thank you. And then all of a sudden, he would decide to drool that day. But then he would come out of it if he had questions. And then the defense got another chance. There was a cell door, and it was small, and you had to strain to see, right? Answer, no, I could actually see pretty good. Well, you questioned the authenticity of his actions. Yes, I do. Did you know that he was banging his head? Yes, I did know that, James Early says. Well, did you know, Rosie asks, that he was defecating in his hands and smearing it? Answer, I saw it. Yes. And did he use this for attention? And he responds, it's something that people do. And I have seen people do it. People do it to get what they want. It starts to permeate. And it's a case by case basis, but when it starts to smell, people come in and they get to shower, but mostly, oh no, he did not say get to shower, excuse me. It permeates. It's a case by case basis. Mostly they get what they want. Anyone under that environment long enough could have some issues, I think. That was an important part for the defense. He did state that anyone under that environment long enough could have some issues. I think anyone under that environment long enough could have some issues. I think. Question: if you knew that he had severe mental health issues, would you have treated him differently? Answer: it wouldn't matter as we treat everyone the same. The jury's questions. Do you know how long Richard Allen was on suicide watch? Answer: I'm not sure how long, but he was in the S watch cell when he first got here. Was he in the same cell for 13 months? Yes, to my knowledge. What is he allowed to have in this cell? And he explains he's allowed to have a tablet, Wi-Fi, a phone, reading material. He can ask for a Bible. He has a Bible. He can have commissary for extra food in addition to the food they serve. He can have extra clothing. A TV is available, but I'm not sure. Is not sure if Richard Allen had one. Rosie asks, could he get a phone like other offenders? Oh, this was a great moment for the defense. So okay, that was the most important one. So he's explaining all of the things that he has. And then the last thing he says is, and he could get a phone like all the other offenders. And Rosie says, but he's not an offender. That was a good moment. And that he asked, does he have S clothes? What are S clothes like? Rosie asks. Is it like a caveman costume almost? And he actually agrees that, yeah, it is a bit like a caveman costume, S clothes are. And now a new witness, John Miller. So we've had 2 John witnesses the afternoon and 2 Michael. So this is, and then a James. So this is the second John Miller. And I'm going to make sure I have some more notes here because I did miss John had a very quiet voice. So I'm going to put this right here and double check my work when I have some confusions. Maybe if I can do all this. Nope, I can't fit all this. So I'll put this here. We're going to make this work. We can do this. Okay. So John Miller explains that he's familiar with RA. Also, John Miller has a goatee. It's a trend today, like the long goatee. Everyone's doing it. So he was his suicide companion for Richard Allen on 123. The S companion watch sheet on 4/9/23 states. So again, this is John Miller. I killed Abby and Libby. Oh, so it states, I killed Abby and Libby, and then he started flushing paper. That's what the log says. So he states that, and then he starts flushing paper. At 7:04 a.m., it says, the funniest joke is how I killed them. And then he started shouting foul language. And then he states, I got what I deserve and hope I burn in hell for what I did. And then he states another one, I'm sorry for what I did for killing them. And John Miller explains that during this time when he said this, he was actually crying this time in his cell. And then he states, I'm sorry I killed those kids. And then there's a cross exam, and Rosie asks John Miller, was he emotionally stable? And he says, yes. Well, you testified that you did not hear the vulgarity, that you were only told of it. I don't know what that means. Sorry, confusing moment. Guys, remember, this was after a very long day, hand cramps, and they were very quiet. So, okay, let me check. I got what I deserved for what I did I hope I burn in hell for what I did. I got that one right. See, I'm double checking my work here. So this is somebody else's notes that was in the courtroom. Another one is, I'm sorry for what I did for killing them, but I don't care I killed them. So that's, yeah, I did not get the last one of that. So all I got was, I'm sorry for what I did for killing them. And I have ... I did not get the rest of it. According to this person, it's, I'm sorry for what I did for killing them, but I don't care I killed them, according to this other person's notes. So that would be the part I missed. Okay. Yes, he's emotionally stable. In April, John Miller explains that he started refusing more meals and he wasn't talking in sensical ways. And it was something that John Miller had actually never seen. And Rosie asked, was it something you never seen? And John Miller said, correct, something I've never seen. And then Rosie said, and did he tell you that he molested his sister? And John Miller says, yes, he told me that. And did he tell you that he may have touched his daughter? He says, yes, he told me that. And did he tell you that he might have gotten an erection in his sleep over it? Yes. Did he say something about an old bear paw? Yes. Did it make any sense? No. Was there a lot of mumbling? Yes. Would you agree, Rosie asks, that if someone was locked in a cell, that long, it would be detrimental to their mental health? Yes. And then the state comes back on with John Miller. April 9th, he states, quote, I only killed them to give my family more time to live. I want to make sure I have this right. Okay. Something else. I pray they will be saved. Another one. I may have touched my daughter, but I don't know. And then they ask John Miller about it. And let me just stop sharing this screen. They said I can save memory if I stop sharing the screen. You don't get to go from being kind and cordial in your speech to completely changing overnight. And that's what John Miller said in response, like that he just thought there was something strange about his changing behavior, that he would share these confessions. And then he said, you don't go from being kind and cordial in your speech to completely changing overnight. And now there's a cross. And at this moment, by the way, during the cross, Richard in the courtroom, Richard looks back at Kathy, but she isn't looking back. That might have not been on purpose. She might have been looking somewhere else, but he did look back at his wife, and Kathy didn't look back or didn't notice him. The question is, was he being treated by Dr. Wallet? Yes. Do you believe he was in a state of psychosis? And the answer is, I can't speculate. I'm not a mental health professional. Well, why was he smearing feces? He said, I don't know. I can't speculate. Was he an unusual inmate? No. The jury questions. Would it be normal for someone to act like Mr. Allen if they don't take their medication? The answer is, it's possible. And then we have Brandon Fisher on the stand. Brandon Fisher was the hardest one to hear. And it was so frustrating because Brandon Fisher actually started to talk in the microphone, and they actually tell all of the witnesses that do try to speak in the microphone to not speak in the microphone. It's strange, but like they say, look, the microphone's only for the people in the back. You don't need to use it. Just raise your voice so we can hear up here. Like they do not want us in the gallery to hear, like deliberately. This happened several times today when these correctional officers will come and they'll bend over to talk in the mic, just like I'm doing. You guys probably love that. Probably sounds a lot better. And then they say, you don't need to talk in the mic. The mic's only for them back there. We just need to hear you. Just lean back. Don't talk in the mic. Raise your voice. It's like they don't want us to hear. And by the way, guys, I went and I tried to get ear aids. Even just I spent $50 on hearing aids for all of you who recommended it. Unfortunately, it makes me be able to hear all of the people close to me, but not up there. So let's go to Brandon Fisher. I just want to make sure I have my neighbors. I want my neighbors' notes too. My friends' notes. So they so kindly let me borrow them. Okay. Brandon Fisher, June 23rd, 2023. He worked from November 2022 to June 2023, and he was an S companion to Richard Allen. And he had striped black sweater on. He had the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, and he had that for months. And he watched Richard Allen every one of his shifts for 4 hours or sometimes 12 hours, depending on the shift. And he filled out logs. And on April 20th, 2023, at 6 p.m. on that sheet, he said that he wanted to confess to the warden and say he is guilty. And he said it 2 times. And he always says it. He said, April 29th at 6 p.m., he stated, I killed 2 girls in Delphi with a box knife. I stole it and I threw it in the trash. And they asked, did he take meds that day? And I couldn't hear his answer. And then in May, he said something about Abby and Libby. He said, Abby and Libby. Oh, yeah, this is important. Okay, so, yeah, this is really important. So he said about Abby and Libby, this is hard. So you guys know the R word, the SA word. I'm going to say that. I've said a lot of words today, but, let's try for YouTube's sake. He said, I was going to R them, not kill them, but I panicked and I killed them instead. That was a heavy one for me. So now it's defense. Sorry. He was hard to hear. So at one point they said, is it strange to see him with feces on his face? And Brandon's response was, well, working in a prison, it's something that you'll see. Question, they told you did he tell you that he killed the girls? Yes. He told you he stole a box cutter? Yes. Well, do you know where he got it from? Yes. He told me CVS. Did he tell you that he wanted to write a confession? Yes. Did he tell you that he already had written a confession? Yes. Would Richard Allen was banging his head on the door on May 18th, 23 at 8 p.m.? Yes. Did he have a gash in his head? Yes. Some people didn't like monitoring him because they knew what he did. Right? And then it was objection, asked and answered. This one was interesting too. So did Richard Allen tell you that he lost his virginity to the babysitter when he was 11 years old? At that moment, the witness actually kind of laughs and he says, that's correct. And then there was what I think I heard something about the R word too, that Richard Allen was R'd as a child. I talked to someone else about it, trying to clarify. Someone said they couldn't figure out if Richard Allen's R as a child was the same as the losing his virginity by a babysitter when he was 11, or if there was something when he was 8. But just, that was mentioned. And then this one's hard. He said, and Richard Allen told you that the girls were screaming during all of this, correct? And he said, yes, that's correct. He told me the girls were screaming. Did he make comments acting like he was living in the 13 and 1400s? Yes, he did. Would he stare in your eyes? Yes. No further questions. And then the prosecution came back. Do you believe that, did you believe him when he acted crazy? And he said, I didn't believe it because when you're sitting there for like 4, 6, or 12 hours a night, oh, he did believe it. Because when you're sitting there for 4, 6, or 12 hours a night, what are you going to do? You have conversations. And he would always want to read Bible verses. He would rub feces on his face and say, I won't be doing that again. And then the defense came up. Do you feel being locked up in that room for months could be detrimental to Richard Allen's mental health? And Brandon's answer was, I would agree. So there you go. Rosie states, if you know right from wrong, this was a moment. Rosie said to Brandon, if you know right from wrong, why would you not say that you were fired? The witness looked shocked, and there was a quick objection, and they moved on. Don't know what that's about. Jury questions. Who is Jerome? That is another guard at the facility. Question, could you interact? Yes, unless someone said not to. And now it is 5:50 p.m. in the courtroom. It is almost 6 o'clock in the Carroll County Courthouse, and they state next witness. And we get another witness, and his name is Raymond Smith. He's a little bit older than the other gentleman that had been previously. He has a suit and tie on. He's looking a little bit more professional, and he has glasses. He's a correctional officer with over 6 years experience. He has 8 weeks of training through the facility, and his shift is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. He was Richard Allen's S companion. They asked, did you do that consistently? Yes. Did you fill out the S companion watch report? Yes. And on 4/10/23 at 3:24 a.m., he licked a window. And then he said, quote, Kathy, I did it. I'm guilty. Run, Kathy, run. I did it. End quote. I look over at Kathy Allen at this time, and she is shaking her head. At April 10th, 2023, at 7:55 p.m., according to Raymond Smith, he quotes, quote, I killed those 2 girls, so I have to kill myself. Richard Allen in the room is shaking his head when he hears that. And then I notice, while there's a pause in questioning, Richard Allen is continuing to shake his head, rubbing his forehead between the questions, kind of going like this. So then defense came up, and I'm going to quote this. There's a question on cross, and Rosie says, did he say to you, if I fucked those girls, I fucked them, but if I killed those girls, I killed them, end quote. So why do you think he said that is Rosie's question. Did he have trouble remembering? And the answer to that is, I don't know. I just wrote exactly what he said. At 4:10 to 2:50 a.m., he's awake, and he's singing God Bless America. And then at 2:50 a.m., he's masturbating at his door while singing Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys. Kathy Allen is shaking her head in the courtroom. And then they explain at 4:05 a.m., he is singing God Bless America, I'm Guilty. And then he starts running in place. And then did he tell you that he wanted to go camping and that Chris is his best friend? Yes, he did. And at 5:17, he started talking. In August, Rosie says, you described him as being polite and sleeping a lot. Yes. And would other offenders, would they attempt to agitate you? Yes. And then it's the state's turn again. And during the interview, when Rosie asked you those questions, was there more that you shared? And Oh, he says, so Rosie is asking, are you sure that during the questions originally that wasn't there more that you shared? Like so he talked about sex with girls or killing the girls, either or. It seemed like he was having trouble remembering, or was he saying that it didn't matter? And the answer is he killed those girls, so he was going to kill himself. He was watching full time to make sure. I was watching full time to make sure they didn't commit S. Or maybe those were two things. Oh, or maybe it was, do I remember? I think they read his law report and it said, and then he said what he thought it was that he seemed to be having trouble remembering or saying it doesn't matter. He wasn't sure what it meant. I'm getting a nod from my friend. So let me reiterate. When they brought up the, like, I either F them or killed them, what the witness's response was, honestly, I think maybe I realized that he was having trouble remembering, or he was saying it didn't matter. He doesn't know what. So I want to clarify that. I remember that too now. And then jury questions. What is an S act that requires a doctor? A jury asks. And they said, well, he is seen by mental health professionals often, and we never leave him alone. So it wasn't really answered, or if it was answered, I didn't hear it. And now it's after 6 p.m., right? And we have another witness, Jason Bedwell. He has been a correctional, he's been there for 9 years. He's been a correctional official for 9 years. He was an S companion at the correctional facility for RA. And from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., he would check on Richard Allen's mental well-being. And on 2/4/24, so this year, 2/4/24, at 10 a.m., he wrote, I noticed him, at 10 a.m., he stated that I am sorry for what I did. I am sorry for killing those girls. And Jason Bedwell said that he was laying in bed, crying, awake, and talking to himself. And he wrote that in the log when he stated that. During cross-exam, there was a question, was he isolated from others? The answer is no, sir. He can speak through the walls, and all the inmates do. The question was, well, he was watched from February 24 to, I didn't get the date, and he was laying down a lot during that time, right? Jason said, correct, sir. And you made these in real time? You made these logs in real time? Correct. I did make them in real time. And he did a lot of laying down and chilling and not much else, correct? So at 9 a.m., he took medications. At 6:30, he was eating and drinking. That is correct. And on February 4th, you noted at 10 a.m., you heard a sorry for killing them. That is correct. And you were interviewed by police. Is that correct? And didn't you tell police that Rick Allen made an objection? He's trying to impeach the witness. And the judge said, are you trying to impeach the witness? And I said, yeah, I am trying to impeach the witness. Yeah. So then he continued. So didn't you tell police that he was curled up in a fetal position? I did. Well, why didn't you put it in your log? He goes, well, I had no place to put it. And they explained that it was a multiple choice. And so he marked that he's laying down. Well, couldn't you have put it early says in the other specified? And he answered, he said, I said what was available to me. I think I might be buffering. Yeah, audio's cutting out bad. Shoot. I hear you guys saying audio is bad. What? I don't know. Okay, go check how bad it is. See if I should continue at all. Like if I should end, I'll end. Jeremy, can you go check? Maybe. I don't know. Should I end it? Okay. I'm going to keep going. I'm sorry if it cuts out. I'm almost done. I think we're on the last witness for the day. So he's asking if he curled up in the fetal position. He said that he stated what was available to him. Did you tell police he would go from calm to hysterical? And at 9:45, he's laying down, and at 10:15, he's laying down? Correct. So you told police, you said, I'm sorry for these things that he's Done. I'm sorry for killing these girls. Correct, I did. Rosie said, well, you added facts. And he said, yes, I shared more because the police asked. Well, you had time with, can't read my own handwriting. Oh, you had time to write more, didn't you? And he stated, no, I had no time. I was helping my fellow officers. I needed to help inmates with incident and helping. I observed what I had seen at the time and I wrote what I was able to. That was a sidebar. And then we had jury questions. Is there a flow sheet in an electronic sheet? I don't know. I turned it in. Was he being monitored by audio or video at this time? And then the answer was no, he was not, which is also interesting because one person said he always was, and then he stated that one time he wasn't. So that's it. We did it. We did it. We started buffering. We started buffering, but we did it. I need a drink of water. Another drink, maybe. No, I'm good. I'm good. So, guys, that's it. I see that we have 135 super chats. I will scan them really quickly. I'm just so grateful for you guys, and I'm sorry as buffering. While it buffers, I'll thank some people. Thank you to all the new members. Oh my gosh, thank you, thank you. Thank you for gifting new memberships. Judy Ron, thank you so much. It is needed. Not just the morning, but the afternoon and evening, Ron. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much, Becky. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for gifting memberships for all our hidden gems. Thank you so much, Arlene. Thank you, Sabrina. Carla, thank you so much. It is needed. Thank you. And actually, what I'll do for that, Carla, I had to spend a little bit more extra money today changing my flight. I'm going to now take a red eye home, get home early the morning of Halloween for my son, but I'm going to stay another day in court. I've heard we just don't want to miss tomorrow, and I'm not going to miss tomorrow. Judy Ron, thank you so much for gifting 10 Hidden True Crime memberships. And again, everyone that is here, I did do a show with Judy Ron about firearms that has to do with this case, and I recommend everybody watching it. It answers so many questions for me with Ed and Ron, and it was great. An incredible expert. YouTube Bad Actors, thank you for becoming a member. Sunday Warren, you asked a great question, and I'm going to answer it because it is a mystery and it is part of this case. What is his reason for not being able to produce a cell phone from 2017? If he has a collection, why would that year be missing? You have an absolutely great point, and they made a really good point of that. He had a massive collection. They took a picture. He had flip phones. He had smartphones. He had everything. Like, I've actually never seen so many phones, and they do not have a phone from that year. I also find it interesting. I mean, and maybe there's a reason that he shared this. If anybody understands what the cell phone service he has, it actually sounds like a great deal. Like, maybe I should jump on that. Like, hey, I'm like, tell me more. It was a great advertisement. Somebody else in the gallery whispered that they thought it might be like a burner phone service. Don't quote me on that. Sleuth, do your research. It also just might be a great service. Let's find out if it's a burner phone. Let's find out if it's a great service we should all be using, because $40 a month for 2 phones sounds awesome. But this is actually part of the question in court is, nobody's ever been able to check his phone. So when people ask, like, is there data on his phone that adds up with like that date, they have not been able to find one. I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe, to be clear, I don't have my phone from 2017. I don't know what I was using, but I think I did have the same carrier. So maybe they could go back. I'm not sure, but admittedly, if someone said, what phone did you have in 2017? I would have to really think about it. So let's throw that out there. Thank you, Dom's mom. I love seeing how many gifted memberships tonight. That is awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Eileen, thank you so much. It means so much. Christina Mack, thank you. To those wondering, those autopsy sketches that I had, by yours right there, Christina Mack. Thank you for your efforts. Cheryl, thank you. McSpunky. $10, that's not cheap coffee, that's expensive coffee. Laura, thank you. Yeah, Laura, that's a great thing to mention. She said that the Mears entrance at the farm, if you go there now, only one car maybe can barely fit. I agree with that. So I don't know if there was more parking back then or what. I didn't see it back then, but you are absolutely right. And then there's now sort of like a gate and a hidden path. And I also saw the path I shared on the video I did, the path that I suspect Richard Allen took, and specifically Richard Allen took, not Bridge Guy, but when Richard Allen explains where he parked in a path that he took is now paved. I, in my video, shared where I thought Richard Allen might have gone that day. Mimi Misty, thank you so much. I think I missed it. Did he live in the same area his whole life? Nope. He moved to Delphi in 2016 or 2017, according to him. Duty, Ron, thank you so much. Lauren, I appreciate your coverage and perspective from inside the courtroom. Let's get together again soon and do another collaboration. I think our community's enjoyed it too. And again, hidden gems. If anybody has questions about the firearm tool mark analysis testimony day, because I sure did, it was very confusing. I had a lot of questions answered over there, and it is a very important video for anyone watching this trial. I can't share it enough. Go check it out. Heather, thank you. Thank you, Robin. Guys, you're so kind tonight. I'm so glad I took the time to look at all of these. Thank you. It really means a lot. These are long days, aren't they? They're long days. But you guys, honestly, your support really pushes me to keep going. When I'm back from Delphi, I have a lot to say. There's just been some really interesting observations I've noticed that I will share at a later time. I also had a nice conversation I want you to know with Becky Patty again today. My heart goes out to these families. It's just this crime is unfathomable. And I also had a nice conversation with Kay Woodcock last night and this morning. She sends her love. And while this case was a little too heavy for her to follow back in the day, I think we all understand. Well, for those that don't, Kay Woodcock is a surviving victim herself when it comes to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. She sends her love to the families and says that hopes one day she might be able to talk to them, and she's getting to a place where she's able to understand a little bit more, and she's paying attention. Her heart goes out to everyone. I let her know that well, yeah, we'll end there. Way too many details if it was a normal forgetful day for a normal walk on a bridge. Who would not recall all these details? Verbal diarrhea, word salad. Thank you to the moderator that's helping me star some of these. It was very interesting. I agree. That's kind of why I was like writing it all down really fast. I was like it's a simple question. Use your cell phone. Do you have your phone? Like, where'd you park? It was interesting, you know. I don't think he did it, but I think he knows who did it. I think he knows what happened, and that's why he's acting so weird. He's afraid if he admits what he saw, he'll take the fall. That's really interesting. I mean, he did repeat, "I don't want to be the fall guy," right? Yeah. He may be guilty, but the evidence is weak. You know, Luli Bell, I agree. You know, the DNA analysis, like, there's nothing, right? There's nothing. Richard Allen says himself that the last 7 to 8 years have been bad. So prior to the murders, he is suffering mental health issues. As this was done in 2022, what happened before then? That's a really great question. Like, so, you know, I want to share this. We learned a lot about Richard Allen's life today, including things that he claims happened to him as a child, that he was a victim. We learned about his mental health issues more. And I want you to know I'm taking all of this to Dr. John. I am going to force him to watch this entire episode so that he can give us some information, and he wants to talk a lot more about Delphi, but I hope that he can help us answer some of these more interesting questions that Like all the witnesses today on the stand, I am not a mental health expert. So hopefully, Dr. John, my co host, who is a criminal psychologist, will be able to answer some of these questions. If your mental health was already fragile, I can't imagine being questioned for a crime of this magnitude. I would definitely incriminate myself because I would be so pissed off and mad. I mean, you're right. Like he is stating to us that he has these mental health issues, and then he's put into this S watch where he's alone and it's this new environment as a 50-year-old man. They, as a witness admitted on the stand on cross that like, yeah, this would be detrimental to anyone's mental health. And he's already struggling. You're working so hard to bring all this information. First, you have to listen intently and write everything down, and then to share it all with us. Thank you. From Cookie and me. Thank you, Karen. Tell Cookie hi and give Cookie a treat tonight from me. And for all of you, Cookie is a dog. So a very sweet, one of our biggest fans. Cookie is our hidden gem. Opinionated. Touching my mouth is something I do almost all the time. You know what? I have my nervous habits. You guys have complained about them before. I touch my hair. I do this with my nose. I know it's really hard, in my opinion, to pin body language down to very specific things because people do it for different reasons. And yeah, I know it's a difficult one. We do not have the answer to that. Oh, I'm going to get that off. I can't put that word up on the screen, but we don't have the answer to why self-harm. Coerced confession. I think a lot of people still think that, and I get it. I get it. I think it's gonna be really interesting what the evidence says, and I ultimately, it's gonna be really interesting what this jury thinks. I think, Donnell, that some of the jury might agree with you. Um, in the end, it is really fascinating because this jury, I don't know what they're thinking. Total poker face. Arresting someone for murder would destroy their life, even if they're innocent. Absolutely. People would never look at them the same again. I agree with that. When he explained why he said that, I'm like, it makes sense. No one would ever look at you the same again, even if you weren't arrested. I mean, right. Yeah, the fact that he places himself right there at the beginning and then never does anything else to help the investigation says it all for me. Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Yes, he watches Dateline. Wasn't that interesting? All right. Everyone wants to know, like, look, ultimately it's the jury that decides, and I am a journalist and I am very open and I am going to follow the evidence and the facts wherever it leads. So I'm answering this as someone that heard his voice and has heard Bridge Guy's voice. Could it possibly be Bridge Guy? Yeah, it could. Is it Bridge Guy? No, can't say that. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you, Corgi. Thanks, you guys. These were all starred by my moderator, so I don't see them until I pin them. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all, so true story again. I was going home tomorrow morning. I've got to get home for Halloween. I've got to make it for Halloween. And my little guy's going to be a scorpion. And after today, I was just like, I can't go. So I found a flight. I bought a new flight. I'm taking the red eye. So I will be in court tomorrow. And again, a big thank you to Ted, who is at the courthouse right now so that I can be live with you guys because it's getting wild. People are now lining up before court is even out. Lunch is a line of people that didn't get in the morning. It is taking a village to get in every day. So thank you to everyone who's made that possible. And thank you to Heidi, who helped yesterday. I shared her photo and we took a selfie this morning. For the wonderful moderator to have to work their butts off the last few days, hoping for normalcy soon. Thank you. I will make sure that these moderators get a gift from all of us hidden gems. Thank you. What are my thoughts on the truth? I am listening for the truth. Every day I'm learning more truth. So, what are my thoughts on the truth? It's fascinating. Things we learned today are fascinating. I think the truth is what we're learning every single day, and it's bringing them on, bring the facts on every day, the evidence every day. What the jury's going to decide, I don't know, but I'm grateful to finally be learning more. I'll tell you that. How cramped are your hands from all that writing? Do you have carpal tunnel? You have no idea. They are not okay. I actually have not just carpal tunnel, but arthritis in my hands. I had an MRI recently, so I'm learning all about it, and you guys have been giving me some great tips. Thanks, you guys. Hey, Gray. It's almost as if how the heck can I take that many notes that fast? I think it's a journalist thing, and only one person can read my handwriting, and that's me. Which is kind of funny too, because people are like, "Can I take a picture of your notes?" I'm like, "You can, but they won't be useful." The only person that can read them, only person to read my notes is me. And as you notice tonight, even towards the end of the day, I couldn't even read some of my notes. So, um, luckily, I am my own interpreter. Thank you, Laura, so much. Thank you so much for the Halloween flight help. Thank you. For Halloween, I have a little guy waiting for me, and I'm also the room mom in his class. So I will be flying home, jumping off the plane, driving straight to his school, putting on his Halloween party with the help of my other room mom, and then coming home and dressing as pest control or an exterminator so that and going out trick or treating with my scorpion. So that's my plan. And so I am going to miss the trial. Trust me, this is hard, but I will not miss Halloween with my little guy. So thank you for being patient while I miss a few days. And then I will be right back. I'm flying back Sunday. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. As you guys noticed tonight, I have a roommate with me. I have a roommate and as well as somebody else. And I have some excellent note takers. So I will be here giving you guys updates every day. I've been training a couple people how I take notes, just like take everything. And I really think that I'm going to bring you guys some great coverage still. So stick with me. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support. I'm not kidding you when I say that you guys are genuinely helping me and you guys keep me going. Um, I'll be honest, this is an honest moment. Last night was hard. I was exhausted. And I even texted John. I said, I don't know. I don't know how long I can do this. This is really hard and emotional. It was the second day seeing the crime scene photos. I was just kind of spent. And, you know, he said he understood. And then, um, I don't know. I went live today, or I sat in court today. I felt the importance of being here and seeing all you guys. And yes, I switched my flight. So I'm going to take off. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for all your support. And I will see you guys tomorrow. See ya. Bye bye.